Death is just the prologue. Berlion von Marbus, the heir to a fallen line of necromancers. Those words sealed his dark fate. Forced to execute his own father, he finally embraced the darkness his enemies feared most. Armed with a demonic pact and the family's forbidden grimoire, he leads the dead himself. Once mere relics, now they are his ultimate weapons. The Marbus name is rising again. Leon will either rebuild his legacy or be swallowed by it. You and I are about to find out. The raw screams of soldiers echoed everywhere. They had one goal: destroy the Pale Devil, a man named Noxvon Lino who claimed to be seeking peace. Leon looked at this man and realized everything began, as it always does, by a cruel whim of fate. A massive army of monsters and men marched together against a single enemy. Their leader gave the order: eliminate this wicked traitor at any cost. Monsters and men roared as they closed the distance. Meanwhile, Lion could only think of the words from his most loyal comrade and friend. He remembered them clearly. Even if the meaning was a mystery, the commander ordered his men to ensure that the target didn't leave this place alive. As a monster lunged, Nox imbued his sword with demonic hellfire, carving through the enemy ranks with a series of lethal, fluid strikes. Maze, he was still thinking of him. The memory burned deep into his mind. While he whispered those tragic words, a single tear escaped and fell from his eyes. Nox threw himself at a nearby demon, cutting it down instantly. He vanished into the ground, bypassed the soldiers, and reached Lian in a flash. Face to face, Maisie asked him to explain why he had finally turned against them all. In that moment, Nox remembered the girl who asked the same thing. Why did you make a pact with the devil? Why betray us for this? He flashed an ironic smile and told him those words sounded familiar. But since things had come to this, he had to speak. Lian said it might not matter to the world, but it mattered to him. So, why did you abandon us? Nox's eyes turned ice cold. He told him that if he truly wanted an answer and an end to the suffering, there was only one solution: take his life. He understood there was no other way. Lian replied that if that was his true wish, he would honor it. With a surge of magic, he reached out and resurrected the fallen soldiers on the spot. Monsters and men rose as the undead, forming Lian's new army. Nox fought back, tearing them apart, but their wounds healed instantly as they rose again. Mies gave the undead no rest, pushing the assault further. They all swarmed Nox at once, but he kept cutting them down with cold efficiency. Turning toward the Necromancer, he charged, noting how much stronger he'd become. The pages of the Necromancer's grimoire flipped at lightning speed, searching for the perfect spell to end this. Lian summoned a massive magic circle behind him. Two crossed swords emerged, clashing directly with Nox's blade. Then, a towering demon materialized behind him and launched a devastating attack. Nox just smiled. Three eyes opened behind him as a cutting wind surged. Leon almost lost his footing, seeing the enemy ready to deliver a finishing blow. A purple flame flared right before his face, paralyzing him where he stood. But his summoned undead took the hit, protecting him. He looked his enemy in the eye and said if killing him was the only way, then so be it. Why did Noxvon Lino walk away so suddenly, leaving behind scars that would never heal? Why did the man they knew hide from the world and choose solitude? This duel will be long, and only one will leave this battlefield alive. Now, let's go back to where the tragedy started. His father stood at the guillotine. The sharp blade cast a long shadow over his dark hair, the most terrifying shadow that can haunt a soul. He stood right beside him, knife in hand, watching. The gathered crowd whispered, feeling a deep pity for their fallen lord. A woman looked at his lordship with pure sadness, wondering what he could have done to deserve such a public humiliation. The man next to her hissed for her to be quiet, or she would be next. Hadn't she seen how ruthless they were? She went silent, but her heart protested. He said all they could do was stay quiet and move on. War was screaming across the continent. Common folk like them had no choice but to stay silent. Crows circled and screeched in the gray sky above, acting as grim omens of the death to come. It was a brutal era of war and endless conflict, as blood soaked the soil of the eastern continent. The killing never stopped, leading the noble house of Marbus to fall as the latest victims of this hellish struggle. Lord von Marbus understood it all. He accepted his fate and closed his eyes. Desperate times always demand the most extreme measures. The strong do as they please, while the weak are forced to steal just to survive. Unlike the powerful, the weak dance with death every single day. It was a gateway to hell where the only thing left to hope for was the sweet release from pain. What a haunting image. This is what the continent has been reduced to lately. The head of the Sylvester house, the primary rival of the Marbus family, Count Alan de Sylvester, sat back, and enjoyed the upcoming execution. I stood on the cold wood of the scaffold as the execution began, the crowd murmuring while my father waited by my side. The Count leaned in with total disgust, asking why the order to start was being ignored by everyone. Horror gripped me as I grabbed the knife with both hands, slowly approaching the rope holding the blade. Eager for death, the Count smiled and ordered me to finally cut the cord. My legs shook as I stepped toward my father and raised the knife. The whole world held its breath. I cut the rope, and the blade fell with a thud and a spray of blood. Human death sounds just like a butcher shop. Scarlet blood stained my face like a twisted painting, leaving only the metallic scent of iron and a horrific reality. It was my cruel destiny, a heavy burden that would haunt me for the rest of my young life. I looked at my reflection in the pool of blood on the scaffold and realized I had ended Berlion von Marbus. With one swing, I had severed my father's connection to the mortal world. I am Berlion von Marbus, son of the fallen Roan, the executioner who carried out his own father's death sentence. Not long after, I had to assume my role as the head of our noble family line. We are more than aristocrats, we are pillars of this nation. But, as they say, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Power belongs only to those who can carry it. Long live the new head of House Marbus, me, Berlion von Marbus. The moment I took my title, I called for a council meeting. A panicked vassal warned that Sylvester's influence was growing, and they feared an invasion of our lands was coming soon. My advisors demanded a decision. We needed to fortify our defenses before it was too late. They wanted wisdom, but I wasn't prepared. I ended the meeting and asked for their patience, while I considered everything. They objected to the delay, claiming it was a dark omen for the future of our ancient house. As I walked toward my office, I couldn't help but wonder how I had even reached this point. After my father died, I became the head at 14. Our house, once a legendary line of necromancies, had fallen into decay. I stopped to look at the portraits on the wall, drawing closer to the faces of my past. They were my parents. I asked them what they would do in my place, knowing the dead offer no answers. Wisdom wouldn't come from the beyond. Yet, I felt a desperate need for some kind of guidance. How could I restore our glory? My eyes drifted to the massive portrait hanging above the great doors. That was Berlion von Marbus, our founding ancestor and the only true necromancer of his time on the continent. Our name was built on the battlefield, where he became a legend through blood and dark power. But since that golden age, no worthy heirs have emerged, leading us into an inevitable and painful decline. With a sigh, I entered the office and touched the family chronicles. Everything led back to the death of my father. My ancestor was more than a man, he was a legend. He swept away enemies like a deathly storm, commanding waves of the undead in an unstoppable march of conquest. In time, the entire western region surrendered to his overwhelming power. They say he made a pact with the demon Marbus, gaining the continent's greatest secret, the necromancy of the Necronomicon. It allowed him to control death itself. And now, that very book was sitting right here in front of me. This was the invaluable relic of our founder, the book that brought House Marbus to its dawn as legendary necromancers. I opened the Necronomicon, and suddenly, an ominous voice echoed in the room, telling me to listen. I froze in shock, looking around my office to find where the telepathic message was coming from. Despite the anti-magic field, the voice persisted. I demanded to know exactly who I was speaking with. The voice called me son and told me not to fear. It claimed it wasn't my enemy, but I remained skeptical. Suddenly, an aura wrapped around me and transported me elsewhere. I saw a massive black lion with horns staring down. It was the demon Marbus. He seemed confused that my predecessor had never mentioned his existence to me. I had no idea what he meant. I asked if he was talking about my father, Berlion von Marbus. The demon nodded, sensing that the thread connecting them had finally been snapped forever. He smiled maliciously and spat out curses, claiming my father's kindness was a weakness for a lord of the Dark Clan. He demanded to know who had done this. I looked him in the eye and told him it was me, his son. The demon growled, exerting crushing pressure. He gave him one last chance to answer. Did he really kill his own father and break their sacred pact? Leon didn't blink. With absolute confidence, he looked the beast in the eye and confirmed he was the one who ended his father. A low, threatening rumble echoed from the demon. He didn't believe a word of it and decided to see the truth with his own eyes. He dove straight into the boy's memories. There it was, the rope snapping, and the head of Rune falling into the dark abyss. Understanding dawned, and the demon calmed down. He noted that while Leon's hand might have cut the rope, that didn't necessarily mean he was the murderer. Leon just looked at him. He knew the truth was far more complex than the demon could ever realize. Marbus sighed, putting his frustration aside for a moment. But then, He felt it, a chilling, heavy aura of darkness lurking deep within the boy. A soul-consuming abyss was hidden behind that calm face. How could a mere child survive while possessing such an overwhelming amount of magical power? He looked down and saw a literal mountain of corpses beneath him. The energy radiating from the boy was something Marbus thought was completely impossible. This child was capable of surpassing even his legendary ancestor. The demon cleared his throat and regained his composure before introducing himself. He is Marbus, one of the 72 demons who chose to live peacefully alongside humans. He was once a loyal friend to Berlion von Marbus and the true source of the family's iconic necromancy. Leon smirked, noting that legendary stories are still told about him today. Was he not the one who taught the founder the forbidden arts and established the entire Marbus bloodline? The demon confirmed it. Leon's expression darkened as he mentioned how his ancestor always claimed that necromancy was flowing through their very blood. But if that's true, why did the power eventually abandon them? Marbus was curious where that idea came from. Leon explained that since the founder's era, the house hadn't produced a single necromancer of his caliber. To him, it was a clear sign the demon had abandoned them. The Black Lion watched him closely, ready to clarify the situation once and for all. The reason was simple. Leon and his family couldn't use necromancy because they were far too weak to be a proper vessel for it. None of them could even compare to the raw talent William once possessed. That was the real reason for their decline. Leon thought it over, then nodded, telling the demon he actually believed his words. The demon was surprised by how quickly he accepted the truth. In his eyes, defeat is simply the inevitable fate of the weak in war. Marbus then asked a sharp question. Was that also why he had accepted his father's inevitable death so easily? Leon's response was cold. It didn't matter anymore. Honestly, his father's passing wasn't anything special or worth grieving over. Before leaving his kind behind, Leon asked for a favor. Marbus refused immediately. Favors are acts of kindness, but demons only deal in contracts. Every deal with a demon is a trade. Leon accepted this and mentioned he wanted to negotiate for the true power of a necromancer. This caught Marbus off guard. He was genuinely curious. The Black Lion flicked his tail, lifting his head with pride. He questioned why a young boy like him was so obsessed with his powers. What was so special about him? Did he really think he had the potential to develop that kind of strength? Leon confirmed it with absolute confidence. He told the demon that if he were mediocre, a superior being like Marbus wouldn't be talking to him. Most people lose their mana and start hallucinating just by speaking to a demon. When the demon gets bored, they usually end up dead. Since he was still alive and breathing, it could only mean one thing. He had real potential. Marbus realized the boy was sharp and had a remarkable mind. He reminded him that any pact is a trade, and Leon knew that well. He wasn't naive enough to think he could get something for nothing in this world. The demon let out a booming laugh, clearly impressed. He agreed that they needed to settle on a deal, and they needed to do it fast. When asked what he wanted, Leon smiled deviously. He wanted every single part of the demon's being. Leon was just glad his pathetic nature still had some value. Marbus was stunned. Meanwhile, the family council meeting continued back at the manor. Berlion Marbus spoke up, reminding everyone that the current head of the family, Berlion von Marbus, was still just a child. He claimed the authority to make the big decisions for the house, and hoped that no one would be foolish enough to oppose him. The vassals remained silent. As the uncle and closest relative, he declared he would take full responsibility for the future of their house. He asked for their thoughts, and an advisor agreed that it was absurd to object. They couldn't leave their destiny to an immature cub or an innocent child. He was certain there wasn't a more worthy candidate to lead the family than the uncle himself. But Berlion spoke up, pointing out that Lord Leon was the only direct heir of the former head. There had never been a precedent in their family history for naming an indirect heir as the official leader. Another vassal snapped back, asking who cares about history when the entire bloodline is on the brink of total destruction. An army of those Sylvester Line bandits was already marching straight for their gates. He grabbed his head in frustration. Succession was no joke. Choosing an ignorant leader meant certain death. Survival was his only priority. Polonia slammed the table, stood up, and roared. How could he say that? Everyone here was only granted a place because of the previous lord's overwhelming grace. In the name of their lineage, they had to fight until the end, not turn on each other. He was on edge. Even if the current leader was weak, he would not let his uncle usurp the throne. Seeing him act as head of the house felt wrong. Why did Lord Run leave them to Mercader? Kerchel stood and paced around his chair. At least the leader had one loyal subject. Berlion demanded total clarity. What did he mean? He replied that blind loyalty often stops people from seeing when things go completely wrong. He leaned in with a dark threat. Releasing his power, he forced him to accept his cold advice. Did you really think I gathered you all here today because I actually cared about your petty opinions? Polonia realized this was a setup from the very beginning and cursed his own blindness. The man suggested he think of his family's safety. He stopped his power and reminded everyone why they were here. They had to choose the lesser evil for the family's survival. He only asked that wisdom guide their path. Poland did not dare to object. In his mind, he could only offer a silent apology to Lord Runa. He was just a pawn in this game. He begged for mercy for being such a pathetic, weak vassal, unable to protect the legacy. Leon waited. He waited for the demon to make his final decision. He looked on thoughtfully. With this contract change, the total scope of his powers would be strictly limited. Rune was soft and naive, but he had more mana back then. Our hero remembered it all too well. Any demon pact requires absorbing the contractor's magic to recharge. So, how were they going to handle this? He mentioned something great was coming, but for now, they would simply rely on his own mana. With a snap of his fingers, the red mist swirled back toward the Necronomicon, growing thick and heavy. A tiny version of the Black Lion emerged from the flash. Maintaining this form would be a real challenge. The lion tilted his head. He looked like a cute pet. Marbus threatened to tear his face off for that. Call me charming one more time and see what happens. Got it? He admitted it would be awkward. The Black Lion circled him in disgust. Since they finally understood each other, it was time to move out. Where were they going? He turned and asked if he truly wanted the power of his legendary ancestors. He confirmed his resolve. The lion said to reach those heights, he must follow his lead. It made sense. Marbus opened a dark portal. They were heading to the ancestors' closed sanctuary. A journey that could cost his life. Are you ready to follow? Despite the danger, he tilted his head, confused why he even questioned his determination. Marbus loved that answer. He stepped forward, telling him he would show the way if he could keep up. They arrived at a forest. Leon could tell immediately this place was drowning in mystery and dark energy. This forest was a labyrinth for outsiders. Only the true head of the bloodline could ever enter this sanctuary. But something was off. If one could get necromancer powers here, why did all his predecessors fail? The demon had a simple answer. It was because none of them were strong enough. They all failed the trials. In his eyes, they were simply incapable of meeting the most fundamental condition. Only those with the purest shade of the darkness attribute can ever hope to reach the inner sanctuary. Until now, no one passed the mist. Leon watched the glowing magic, shocked by how dense it really was. Marbus raised a paw. The trial begins now. Our hero entered the sanctuary and began his long descent. At the first step, Marbus warned him to be careful. He would find no help from the demon here. Leon agreed. This was a test of true strength. The demon gave one last tip: follow the Necronomicon. The book began to glow, flying close to him and demanding his full attention. The demon smiled. He was leading him to the ultimate reward, the power of a necromancer. Then, a roar. He stopped instantly and moved toward the sound. Green torches flared to life, lighting a long, eerie hallway. He reached a massive hall filled with goblins. Then, he heard a girl, tied up and crying. He gripped the Necronomicon, peeling back the cover to the very first page, the instructions for the forbidden. Step 1. Reviving the dead. But he didn't have time to study. The goblins were already closing in. The manual was clear. To give life, you must first take it. He slammed it shut and drew his blade. A cold glance at the girl, then the monster. He lunged forward, meeting the goblin's charge head-on. The beast swung and missed. Leon tightened his grip, a single fluid motion delivering a definitive, fatal strike. One life taken. He prepared for the next, remembering his father's chilling words back at the family cemetery. In the grand house of Marbus, what mattered most? The answer was simpler than you and I might think. They were necromancers, lords of the dead. For them, death wasn't an end. It was something to be worshipped. As a boy, he couldn't wrap his head around it. How do you actually venerate the end of life? He assumed necromancers were just cold-blooded killers hunting for power. But the truth was far more complex. Rune had spent years digging through the dark archives, uncovering every bloody secret of their family history. They were feared as monsters globally, sure, but that didn't mean they were heartless villains. He made a vow. If he had to take a life, he'd make it quick. A merciful end for any soul he encountered. But looking at these foul creatures now, Max wondered if this mercy really applied to his enemies. The pack hesitated. Seeing their kin slaughtered so easily had even these monsters reconsidering their next move. He focused on the neck. One precise strike to the vertebrae, the cleanest, most painless way to kill. From the shadows, Marbus watched. The kid lacked formal sword training, yet his precision was terrifyingly surgical. Pure luck or a hidden gift? We are about to find out. Lion smirked, already anticipating the next kill, but luck only goes so far. Goblins are treacherous by nature. Never turn your back on a cornered rat. Fighting the whole horde at once was suicide. He gripped his blade, eyes darting, bracing for the ambush. Depth perception is a nightmare in this gloom. Worse, his vision was getting blurrier by the second. The first kill snuffed out his torch. Now, he had to let the darkness become his only ally. No more wide swings. To survive this, he had to pierce, twist, and move with lethal efficiency. He lunged with predatory speed. His blade found the neck, and the goblin's dying scream shattered the silence. Another light dies. In the total blackness, the remaining goblins let out a synchronized, hungering growl. They pounced from both sides. He slipped back, letting the two monsters slam into each other instead. He finished another off. As the lights faded, his eyes finally adjusted to the predatory world of shadows. But his blade was chipping against their claws. That is the problem with using a ceremonial knife for war. A shadow shifted overhead. He looked up just in time to see a goblin descending like a gargoyle. Reflexes took over. He hurled the knife, the blade grazing a cheek. As he realized he had disarmed himself, he rolled aside, grabbing a discarded sword from the floor, while the black lion watched his every move. He pivoted and drove the steel home. Crimson spray painted the floor as the monster fell. A final horizontal slash finished the job. He turned, stepping slowly toward the girl who needed his help. He pulled the gag from her mouth. She collapsed into tears, sobbing out her gratitude for the rescue. Then cold steel erupted from his chest. His eyes widened. He never saw the betrayal coming. She withdrew the sword, watching his blood drip from the steel, with a cold, predatory gaze. He suddenly remembered his father's chilling wisdom regarding the monsters of the continent, creatures that mimic human beauty to lure the unsuspecting to their deaths. He jammed his sword into her shoulder, her scream shifting into a monstrous roar as her disguise shattered. His father was right. Some monsters do not deserve a quick end. Some need to feel the fear. He smiled, his expression darkening. It was time to give this creature a masterclass in true agony. A scream echoed. Then, the last torch flickered out, leaving only the dark. Meanwhile, the self-proclaimed head of the house was celebrating. To him, the throne was finally within reach. Just a little longer and everything becomes mine. The woman beside him simply purred in agreement. Who would dare challenge a decorated knight in favor of some spoiled, immature brat? It was the perfect plan. She never imagined he would play Count Sylvester like a fiddle just to get exactly what he wanted. The woman leaned in, teasing that allying with enemies just to climb the ranks was a bold, masculine move. Herschel laughed it off as flattery, admitting they would have to play nice with those Sylvester fools for a while. He took a drink, claiming this was better than coddling a lion that would only lead Marbus to its grave. He wanted total control, and winners are never judged. Still laughing, his companion asked the real question, what would become of Leon? The people at the estate were still loyal to his father, making the boy a difficult piece to move. Herschel chuckled darkly, too busy to care. His solution? Just announce the boy met an untimely, tragic end later on. He knew dead men tell no secrets, and their children shouldn't be any different. The vassal agreed. Honestly, the last time a corpse actually spoke was hundreds of years ago, back in the days of the founder, a legendary necromancer. Kirchhoff poured another glass, toasting to their future leader, Sir Kirchhoff. The men shared a loud laugh, drinking deep as they enjoyed their feast. Meanwhile, Count Alan of Sylvester gathered his forces, demanding to know if the plan to crush Marbus was ready. A soldier confirmed that thanks to Berlion von Marbus, their victory was already set in stone. They only needed the palace to greenlight the war. Alan just laughed, calling them all pathetic, terrible idiots. Imagine being naive enough to think he would stop his conquest just because the first war ended. Well, their stupidity only made his job easier. His men praised his brilliant strategy, while Alan, looking at the table, asked for the name of that traitor, Herschel. Who knew the grand history of House Marbus would end because of one short-sighted traitor? What a lovely night indeed. With a sharp wave of his hand, he ordered his men to have everything prepared instantly. He smiled. First the father, now the son. He could almost hear the sweet, desperate sounds of their demise. Leon had just finished off the final beast in the dungeon. As the last torch flickered out, everything went pitch black. There it was. The final target. The torches roared back to life with normal flames. Leon exhaled, fixing his hair while the Black Lion looked on, impressed. He had never seen a contractor this insane. He pounced on the boy with joy, catching Leon completely off guard. Leon slipped, falling straight into a pool of blood. Marvus just patted his cheeks, shouting that he had the grit to survive an orc camp if he could just control himself. Leon stayed silent, enduring the old demon. Marvus noted that, despite the human disguise, the monster was unmistakable. Yet, Leon had wiped it out effortlessly. Leon stood up, pushing the lion aside, and muttering that he would rather avoid orc camps if possible. They say orcs despise humans more than any other race alive. The lion was buzzing with excitement. He had to know, how did Leon figure out the last monster was hiding with the others? Leon's answer was simple. It was the torch. One stayed lit, while all the others had vanished. The lion was hooked. Leon explained that from the moment he entered, he noticed the torches had a strange, eerie glow. The flames were green. He identified them as shadows of the dead. Each time a monster fell, a torch would wink out as a signal. Even after the goblins died, one torch remained. He knew a monster was still hiding, and he could not leave until it was dead. Marbus watched in awe, amazed by the boy's incredible composure. He never expected a 14-year-old to be this sharp in such a life-or-death situation. Most people panic when their lives are on the line, but Leon handled it perfectly, facing down every single enemy without hesitation. There is more to him than just high mana. He might be hiding something truly special. Intrigued, the lion was ready for more. He pulled out a book, announcing it was time for the next trial of Wellen. Leon opened to the first page, but since he had already followed the steps, he just skimmed through. After taking life, you must raise the fallen. As the realization hit him, Leon let out a dark, knowing smirk. The Black Lion told him to look at the dead goblins and flow mana into his eyes to sharpen his sight. There, he would see a thread rising from each body, stretching toward the unknown. Leon followed the instructions, and suddenly, glowing threads emerged from the corpses. Marvus called it the Death Line. Do these threads really link the souls here to the world beyond? The demon confirmed it, explaining how necromancers rip the souls of the dead from their bodies to revive them, mixing in their own mana to force their rebirth as the undead. And then, those goblins rose, marked for eternal service. The Black Lion was about to put on a masterclass in necromancy. A single flick of the claw, and a goblin lunged. Sword raised. It stopped just inches from Leon's throat without striking. The demon explained that this entire ritual is basically like a branding for the soul. There are other ways to craft the undead, but for monsters, this is the only way that works. He will save the rest for later. Leon understood perfectly. Marbus challenged him to try it, but first, he had one burning question that had been weighing on his mind. His predecessor always said turning a human into an undead was way more complex than using a mere monster. Do you really think I can reach that level? Marvus sensed the vibe immediately. You sound like a man who is about to need a human puppet very soon. The Black Lion grinned. His target? Berlion von Marbus, his own uncle. Meanwhile, Berlion was busy partying with ladies, totally unaware his time was up. Downing another drink, he laughed about his old boss being a brainless fool. Life was finally better now that the man was dead. This is just the natural order for a favorite of destiny like me, is it not? His friend agreed. Just one more heir to eliminate, and the weight on his shoulders would finally be gone forever. Berlion waved it off. Killing that kid? That is going to be easier than breathing. He raised his glass high, inviting them to drink up. These significant moments were meant to be savored, after all. Then crash. The chandelier cable snapped, sending it slamming onto the table. The women screamed in terror. As darkness swallowed the room, the lights died. Berlion panicked. His companion cried out that this building had powerful magic protecting it from accidents. It would take something way more terrifying than wind to move something like that. Berlion looked around, silencing the girl with a finger. Who is there? He shouted into the pitch-black void. Nobody in Marbus territory would dare touch him. But then, his nephew's voice hissed from the shadows. Why are you so sure about that? He spun toward the balcony. There, hidden behind a thin, translucent curtain, stood his nephew. Lightning ripped through the sky. Boom. The young leader of the oppressed clan had arrived, and he was not looking to talk. He signaled for his guards, but Leon just smirked. It is kind of you to finally recognize me as the boss. Berlion forced a smile. Why the late visit without warning? Is there something urgent? Leon just laughed at the strange question. Since when does a landowner need permission to visit a subordinate who is not even a vassal? Should I have sent a courtesy note first? Kerchel sneered. A worthy lord would not need one. But we both know you are not worthy. Are you just terrified of losing your place? It is too late now. Your pathetic father is not coming to save you this time. Lian stepped through the curtains. I am responsible for your safety now. His uncle just laughed. What does your new wisdom say about coming alone? Fatal error coming here without a backup plan. But Lian just looked at him. You really think I came alone? Kerchel froze. The air turned heavy as a terrifying energy began to leak from the boy. Something was very wrong. This was not just magic. This was dark magic, an abyss deeper and darker than anything a mortal should ever have the right to know. He could not believe his eyes. Then, as the creatures emerged from the magic, he gasped, "Are those zombies?" Lian confirmed it, summoning a literal horde of goblins. How is this possible? Kerchel screamed in pure shock. Not even his late brother could do this. Our main character just tilted his head. Is there something wrong? House Marbus had officially taken control of the dead. Furious, the man ordered his guards to kill this monster immediately. They lunged for the kill, but even with a sword flying at his face, Lian stayed cold as ice. A goblin intercepted the strike. It ripped the sword away, leaving the guard shaking in absolute terror as it resisted. Then the goblin struck. A lethal swing that did not miss. The guard collapsed dead before he even hit the ground. Kerchel watched in horror as his men fell while the goblins continued to tear through his master's enemies. The remaining guards realized this was it. They drew their steel and charged into the middle of the bloodbath. Sparks flew. Blood sprayed the walls. Kerchel realized this was not a normal fight. It was something far beyond the ordinary. He activated his own magic, eyes wide. The boy had actually mastered necromancy. But how? This should be impossible. He charged a magic sphere, hands trembling with rage. What did you do to create this mockery of our founder's power? I watched him sneer. He said it was strange that the Marva's head could control the dead. My uncle screamed that it was absurd. Necromancy was lost. Even my father never used it. He thought I was faking it. A desperate show from a useless heir. I refused his farce. I reached out. If he was too stubborn to believe it, I would give him no choice. It was a foolish choice. I called the dead once more. They roared, lunging on my command. Kerchel panicked. He fired a weak magic blast and told his men to retreat. The flash hit my goblins, leaving only singe marks. He looked at them in pure horror. A little burn wouldn't stop them. Not when they do not feel pain anymore. Dark energy surged through the corpse. Its eyes lit up as it lunged, making him tremble. He begged his guards for help, but his face went pale the second he looked. They were already on the ground, barely twitching. Now, it was just him and me. He fired again, cursing my name. He hated admitting how pathetic his magic really was. Between the alcohol and his low talent, he was useless. He hissed that I would regret this. He promised I would not get away with this easily. He didn't see the goblin. A cold blade bit into his shoulder, and blood began to spray. Still, he tried to fight. He cast another spell, but it just fizzled into nothing. He cried about betrayal, but I just remembered a lesson from my father. History is written by winners. Losers, they are just forgotten footnotes in the end. He asked if I was lecturing him. Insensitive? Maybe, but he still did not understand the truth. I will tell you what I learned. Forgiveness is a luxury for the victors. I stepped closer with my army. He used to be the one on top. He was the one who stabbed my father. But the times have finally changed. He told me to shut up, staring into the blade. I did not wish him well. I wanted him to suffer. I promised to remember this day while I stripped away his every hope. In the name of the Marva's clan, I gave the final order. He just froze, waiting. The goblins swarmed. His screams echoed until there was nothing left but a pool of blood. They tore him apart. Marbus watched me, realizing I was just as crazy as he feared. Even a demon would weep at this. A new necromancer, mastering this power on his first try. From the outside, it looked like I had been controlling the dead for over 10 years. I clapped my hands, smiling. I had a fun idea. Marbus just looked at me, shivering. A new day. I called a meeting, and the vassals filed into the grand hall. Everyone was there except the one they expected. They whispered, wondering why they were even here. Nobody knew a thing. Not even the junior assistant had shown up. All they could do? Wait. An urgent council meeting is no joke. Was it an attack? Was House Sylvester on the move? The room was in complete and total disorder. One man tried to stay calm. Paranoia was dangerous. Would they really break the peace treaty? Besides, starting a war again would need the king's own seal of approval. They agreed to wait. Soon enough, every single one of their doubts would be cleared. The heavy doors finally creaked open. But it was not the man they were all expecting. I walked in and took my seat. The council erupted in whispers. This was not the plan. Why was the young lord here? Was I finally challenging my uncle for my heritage? They babbled about formalities. But one question remained. Why was I the one sitting there? I sat down and looked them in the eye. Were you all expecting my uncle? I told them the truth. He would not be coming. Or rather, he could not. As they panicked, I dropped the bomb. He is dead. And he fell by my own hand. I glared at them with ice in my eyes, asking if there were any more questions. The council members stared in shock until one slammed the table, demanding a far more detailed explanation for my claims. How do you justify killing the eldest council member when the mourning for his predecessor has barely even ended? Another member shouted for me to listen. As the clan leader, they expected me to answer them. I simply told them the truth. Kirchel was a traitor. Not only did he dishonor my father by leaking vital secrets to the Sylvester house, but he also planned to steal my inheritance. I knew that despite his crimes, they were all just trying to save their own pathetic reputations. The counselor froze. The order to attend came from Kirchel, but he is gone, likely already dead and buried. But how could the old man let such a young boy die like that? No time to worry about him now. This young knight killed Kirchel without even being ordered to. The man stood up, raising his hand, swearing to God he knew nothing of such a crime. He must have used some kind of powerful magic, he thought. A council member stood up, hand pressed against his chest, desperately assuring everyone that they were never involved in this. How could we have known that old fraud was weaving such vile and treacherous plots? The master of ceremonies tapped the table, ordering silence. He reached out and spoke with authority. Your claims might be real, but that doesn't clear you of the guilt for this grave crime. Negligence regarding a conspiracy under your own roof. Damn it, the man thought. This kid played us all. Then the council member spoke up, saying, very well, my lord, but the question remains. Was Kirchel really a traitor? Do you have proof? Or did you kill an innocent? I stayed silent, then stood to speak. They were acting a bit sharper than I had expected. The man asked who could have predicted what happened if he was allowed. Marbus appeared on my shoulder, pooling energy into his book. Fine. You wanted proof? Here it is. Let him demonstrate the betrayal of Kirchel von Marbus. Raising his hand over the book, he declared that as the rightful heir, he, Leon von Marbus, would now invoke a lost soul. Suddenly, monsters erupted from the floor, lunging toward the terrified council members. The men were horrified. A spell that calls the dead? How could he have mastered this? In an instant, Kirchel's corpse also rose from the ground. The counselors screamed in absolute terror. I had rediscovered our family's lost art. Kirchel, will you confess before you lose your mind completely? The man gasped in shock. Kirchel? How? I told him I was getting tired of that question. Why be surprised? Necromancy is the Marbus trade. He screamed for everyone to run for their lives. The counselor cursed me to hell as another ran over, shouting, why are you just standing there? You have to move. But a moment later, his companion's head was torn right off his shoulders. The body collapsed. He turned and heard a desperate plea for help as someone crawled away. A trail of blood followed his heavy breathing. I told them the meeting wasn't over just yet. You will listen to the head of this family until I am finished talking. Kirchel approached the man. I asked again. Was there anyone here who didn't know about his atrocities? Every single person who served the previous head turned their backs on him. All of them. No one was ignorant of his betrayal. I asked if that was true. The man begged for forgiveness. The counselor cried out, begging me to give them a chance to prove their loyalty. He turned to see a monster right beside him. As leader of this family, I raised my hand. I, Leon von Marbus, declare to this council that necromancy has returned to our glorious bloodline. I closed my book. Soon, I was in a room full of bodies. Where can I find Serpulin? A worker hiding behind the wall peeked out, saying he was likely imprisoned for inciting a rebellion. I told him to lead the way and show me where. Of course, my lord. I opened the door and told them they could run, but I wouldn't recommend it. They should know better for their own good. I hoped they would make the right choice. My subordinates could only watch me go with pure horror in their eyes. Meanwhile, a soldier approaches Alan. Sir, it is here, he says, handing over a letter. Alan takes it, wanting to read the news himself. He scans the pages and smiles. Excellent. It looks like even the Empire has finally turned its back on House Marbus. His man agrees. Sir, they have nothing left but dusty old stories of ancestors. They are practically finished. Their money and soldiers are a joke, to put it lightly. The Sylvester clan leader? Yeah, he knows it too. They are running on empty. One way or another, they are going to walk straight into our trap as planned. Next month, when this noble war kicks off, House Marbus will be forced to their knees. By the way, about that final request, the subordinate salutes with total confidence. My lord. Then he asks, are you sure there is zero chance we could lose this? Alan smirks. Not a chance. Unless a master necromancer suddenly appears out of thin air to save those losers after a century of being total nobodies, or if their legendary founder Berlion von Marbus somehow comes back, our victory is guaranteed. Meanwhile, down in the dark dungeon, Pulin cries out for his young master. He collapses at his feet, begging the main character for mercy for his absolute stupidity. Pulin admits he let greed poison his heart, putting the young master in grave danger. He feels he only deserves death. Our hero looks down at him, thinking of Serp, one of the few loyal vassals left, who actually stood up against his snake of an uncle. I need to recruit this man now. He sits beside Pulin, placing a hand on his and telling him to stand up. I have much to do, and I need help. Pulin is a mess. Why would you want a fool like me, sir? Clean yourself up, the boy says. Then meet me in the office. We will go over the real details once you are decent. Overjoyed, Pulin vows his life to him. I will serve you with every drop of my blood from this moment on. Later, our main character looks out the window as Marbu licks a paw on his shoulder. So, what is the next play? Pulin gasps. Sir, that is insane. Impersonating Kirchel to meet the Sylvesters face to face? That is way too dangerous. He crosses his arms, worried. Mimicking his every move and attitude will take some serious acting skills. Our hero just summons a mysterious book. Is this enough to convince you? Suddenly, a black crow erupts from the shadows, morphing into a perfect copy of his uncle Kirchel. Pulin is terrified. What in the world is that? He wonders how his leader can stay so calm while doing this. He literally just turned his own uncle into a walking corpse. The other vassals mentioned it before, but seeing it, it is true. He really is a necromancer. Pulin can hardly believe it. He remembers when House Marbus was legendary. Why did the heavens let them fall so far for so long? My lord, using a puppet Kirchel might trick the Sylvester family for a little while, he says nervously, but they will eventually see through it. A dead body cannot talk or act naturally. Our protagonist just smiles. Usually, you would be right. If this were a simple corpse, yes. But I found something much better. This is a double I happened to catch. It is a monster that mimics everything: personality, memories, and skills. The creature reaches out, pulsing with dark energy. Pulin can only stare in absolute shock. Wow, we see a flashback of our hero, holding a broken, bloody sword. He stands over a woman's body and asks for the monster's name. A doppelganger. It copies everything, from thoughts to powers. These nasty things love to hunt, killing the original person and eating them to take their place. Endless companions, huh? Our main character thinks it over. A doppelganger. Interesting, Marv sighs. Guess the apple does not fall far from the tree. Wellen, leaving such a perfect tool for your descendant was very kind. Can I really use this thing? Marvis nods. Yes, but it only works on people you have met personally. You have to know them first, and you cannot copy anyone with stronger magic than you. Do you understand the risks, contractor? You are talented, but still very young. Even if you seal your uncle's soul, his loyalty is not guaranteed. If you lose focus for even a second, that soul will vanish into nothingness. He promises to fix House Marbus before ever thinking of leaving. He will never abandon his people. He knows what happens if he fails. The innocent staff would be slaughtered or enslaved by the Sylvester army. Marbus asked if they would risk it all. Our lead didn't blink. He would die for them. Marbus wondered why. Was it just some crazy sense of duty to his clan? For what purpose? Time was tight. He gave the order to move and turn that bastard into a literal living corpse. He bet he could find a use for it. Our hero asked if he recognized the creature. He confirmed it was one of Welland's favorite puppets. Useful, sure, but his personality? Totally annoying. The protagonist aimed his book at Crow and spoke. Suddenly, the soul of the deceased appeared. The heir, Berlion von Marbus, pulled him back to the world of the living. As he took human form, Marbus tapped his head and shouted for him to wake up. How long are they going to sit around? They finally have a contractor after hundreds of years. What a total fool. He needs to go back to normal. They have no clue what is going on. He snapped his fingers and shifted into our hero's form. He looked at Marbus and mocked him for being such a pompous cat. Marbus was furious. You want to die? He just pointed and reminded him that he was already dead. What a dumb cat. He and the protagonist shared a look before everyone gathered around the table. Pulin mentioned, There was a way to recreate Kirchel's specific habits, using his own memories. It seemed possible to trick Sylvester with this empty shell. The plan worked. Polonia had to see it. Max closed his eyes and said that was exactly what he needed. Sir Pullen had one more question. With your permission, my lord. One last question. It was clear Sylvester would seek official approval to strike their lands again. Why stay here, despite the danger? Running away would have given them a much better chance at surviving. Our hero remembered those words and stated it was his duty as a leader to protect what is theirs. Pullen's eyes widened in total shock. He promised to follow the leader's will with everything he had. Still, he couldn't help but wonder why. The protagonist took a moment to give a thoughtful answer. To be honest, I have been weighing this decision for a while now. I promise there are no hidden agendas here. He just wanted to be a leader worthy of this house. Mostly, he wanted to learn what being worthy meant. The answer still isn't clear, to be fair. So, he decided to give himself the time to find it. It also means he will stop anyone from trying to take what belongs to this house. As long as he avoids his father's mistakes and keeps defending his home, he might finally find the reason why he fights. He is afraid. That is all he knows. Later, Crow crossed his arms and mocked how far the house fell. They have a ton of work ahead. On the sofa, Marbus the contractor started shouting in a total rage. He is the master. Crow should not treat his contractor with such disrespect. How dare he act that way? He pointed at himself and asked if Master Marbus even cared about things like formal manners. Marbus screamed. Is the contractor really that bad at social cues? And how did he even know that? He jumped off the bed and said he just smelled it. Crow was Welling's familiar and served as a loyal assassin. Our hero tilted his head. He figured that being able to transform was pretty useful for an assassin. Crow let out a sigh. A crow is the perfect assassin and will be very useful for his contractor. He is not some scruffy cat with a huge ego. Marbus yelled back that he was not a cat at all. At that moment, the protagonist realized he truly needed those skills for what was coming next. Crow, can you act like your late Uncle Kirchel? Marbus held his head and said it would be easy as pie. Marbus jumped and called him ignorant. It is simple, right? Just a piece of snake. He took off his hat and wondered why anyone would want human sweets when snake poison tasted so good. Our hero thought to each their own. Marbus laughed and said humor just didn't fit. Fool's contractor. Suddenly, there was a knock. The hero asked who it was as Polonia entered with a deep bow. He handed over a letter from Sylvester and explained he had rushed to deliver the message in person. The hero opened the letter and started reading. It claimed the House of Marbus had neglected its noble duties. It called them shameful for feasting while their loyal subjects were drowning in their own blood and tears. The Sylvester family, led by Count Alan, officially challenged the House of Marbus to a fair noble duel. If the duchy surrenders now, war is avoided. You and I know our hero won't back down. All right, you and I are jumping into the chaos. If they don't submit, an army arrives in 30 days to level everything. Count Alan of Sylvester Marbus peered over our main character's shoulder, reading the grim letter. The thunder has finally fallen, he muttered. Give me 1 month, our hero replied. Marbus asked if he was terrified of this sudden threat. Time is short, he admitted. You could always run and delay the inevitable, Marbus suggested. Go gather your forces. Max stood there, completely stunned by the idea. He couldn't grasp the meaning, doubting he could even last a month. Then, he burned the letter. Marbus just smirked at his unstable contractor. That army has hundreds of trained soldiers. This threat is far worse than his uncle's, yet he still plans to fight them head-on. Our main character just smiled. He was certain they'd be perfectly fine after all the time they had spent preparing for this. There was no reason to show mercy. He could just wipe them all out later. Down at the market, a man whispered to his friend, asking if they'd heard the news. Sir Kirchel vanished into thin air last night. His friend nodded grimly. It's a terrible omen, especially with the previous family head dying so recently. They just hoped the young lord survived. The poor kid must be shattered, losing yet another relative so soon after his father passed away. Life is just cruel sometimes. His companion just sighed, hoping the boy could actually weather the coming storm. Now, stay with me here. A voice nearby suddenly asked if they were gossiping about Lord Runa's heirs. He can handle this. The man agreed. He didn't think Sylvester would storm the gates just yet. If God wills it, he added with a shrug. Right then, Pullen approached. He cleared his throat loudly into his fist and glared at the men. Gentlemen, he began coldly. Do I really need to remind you that loose lips can sink entire ships? The men bowed instantly. Lord Pullen, we were just sharing news during our break, one cried. Please, Accept our deepest condolences for your loss. The man bowed even lower. Losing an uncle right now must be devastating. We can't even imagine the pain you're going through. Our hero just looked at him. Actually, my uncle is still very much alive. He explained that the man had simply caught a sudden, nasty illness. It was all a calculated play to keep the facade of life going. He assured them there was no need for concern. Turning away, he thought, to fool your enemies, you must first fool your friends. Sir Poulin, ensure the surviving vassals keep their mouths shut, he ordered. The witnesses too. We need total silence on this. Consider it done, my lord, Poulin replied. But why are we in the town center? I could have brought you anything you required. He appreciated the offer, but there was something he needed to witness with his own eyes. This was a task for the lord himself. Marbus, perched on his shoulder, spoke up. This is it. He could feel a massive surge of magic radiating from the building ahead. They stopped in front of the structure. Sir Poulin, you'd better wait out here, our main character said firmly. Are you sure about going in alone, my lord? He nodded. Stay back and lock the door behind me. No one enters or leaves. Inside was absolute chaos. Workers were frantically scrubbing the floors, desperate to erase every single trace of what had happened there. Spotting a man with strange ears, our hero asked if he was the one. Marbus confirmed it. This was their target. The man's body was a wreck, kneeling on the cold floor. He scrubbed away fluids. Marbus hated seeing such incredible talent go to waste. He sighed, noting that none of the vassals had a decent eye for true potential. They were blind to the power before them. Our hero stepped forward and asked for a moment. Walter immediately began bowing and stammering out apologies to the noble. He was terrified that the mess from last night's rowdy guests had offended the young master. He begged for more time. Suddenly, a woman rushed in and slammed her heel into Walter's shoulder. Walter, how dare you speak to the lord like that? She pressed a hand to her chest and offered a fake smile. Please, young master, accept my humble apologies for this disgusting mess. It's just an accident, she cooed. Dealing with a low-tier beastman like this is always a chore. Then she slapped him hard. Insolent half-breed. Do you even know who this is? This is the young master of House Marhwa himself. Baltor collapsed at her feet, begging for mercy. He was a new hire and didn't recognize the high-ranking noble standing there. Our main character ignored her, demanding just a minute of time. The girl smiled brightly, thinking the honor was all hers. She started to boast, but he cut her off instantly. I wasn't talking to you, he stated, his voice like ice. He pointed straight at Baltor. The beastman looked up in pure shock. Wait, what did she say? This young man is Lord Marbus? In that moment, our hero focused his energy into his hands, directing a flow of pure power toward the injured man. His wounds closed instantly, and the bandages fell away. He stared at his hands, speechless. The pain was just gone. I'm asking one last time, our hero said. Can you give me a minute of your time? The girl cut in again, apologizing for the interruption. She informed him that the man was her personal slave. He had no right to his own time. He realized it. The owner was nowhere to be found when he came for his uncle's soul. She has no idea, because he wiped out every witness. He smiles and says, Fine, I have questions. First, since when is slavery legal in this duchy? And second, it has been far too long since your predecessor died. Why the disrespect? Maybe she just refuses to accept him as the true and rightful ruler of Marbus. At that exact moment, he focuses his energy to reach out for the book. Marbus smirks, noting his contractor looks young, but disrespecting someone bound to a demon is pure suicide. Some things are unforgivable. Then our hero mentions he is worried about far more than just this single beastman. If she has other slaves, he demands their release. 10 minutes. That is all she gets, before mercy runs out. She smiles. Well, young master, ready for the consequences? Guess I have been out of touch for too long. He fires back. It is fine if you admit your mistake. Trust me, I have heard much worse. Walter looks at him, wondering why he shows mercy to a creature who is nothing but a worthless slave. She snaps her fingers. The workers grab whatever they can find, ready for blood. She points forward and screams, Show is over. Boys, get him. Mr. Kitchell said he will cover us if anything happens. They charge in, but he simply raises a hand. Monsters emerge and instantly tear into the crowd of thugs. She watches in horror. Our hero reaches out to one of the monsters and asks, Hey, can I borrow your sword? His own blade was trashed. He takes the new sword and promises to return it when he is finished. He lunges, slicing the man's throat instantly. The girl gasps. Wait, What is going on? Where did this kid get such insane strength? He turns slightly, asking what exactly he owes to his own warrior. You might think you are a worthless slave, but that is a lie. From now on, you are vital to me. Walter is stunned. What was that? What use could Lord Marbus actually have for someone like him? He was just a stray lost in a massive world. He remembers his childhood, face down in a puddle, begging for the pain to stop. The other kids just kept kicking him, screaming for him to shut up. Beast. They blamed parasites like him for the bad harvests. He was never welcome, just a monster in their eyes. Even as a kid, he could not understand why humans were so cruel, or why they enjoyed his suffering so much. Back then, he was just a confused child. But now he understands exactly how the world works. He stood up, gathering his energy, and asked those kids why they could not just leave him alone. There was no logic for this torment besides his species. Why are you doing this? He realized that being born different was the only reason he was their target. Then, one day, he suddenly realized just how naive he had been. Standing over the children's bodies, he asked in despair, "What have I done?" He could not accept it. He was too scared to face the truth that he really was a monster. Back in the present, he hands the weapon back. The girl screams in terror. What are you doing? She thought his rebellion would force Kitchell to quit. The child of a useless lord cannot stop anyone. You needed to remember that, he says. His words cut deep. But it was clear he was done being the weak son of a lord who would not even stand against injustice. Power gathers in his hand as he declares he will soon lead this family. He will honor the house of Marbus, and there is no room for her here. You arrogant bastard, she screams. He turns his attention to Walter. The beastman stares back, wondering if he is truly looking at a killer. But for some reason, he is not afraid. Why? He smiles and asks, Walter, do you want to join me? Your skills would be incredibly useful to my cause. Do not take this as an insult, sir, but I must ask one thing before I swear my loyalty. Energy swirls around him. His expression shifts. He admits he is a descendant of the demon wolves, the most hated species in the world. Even among beastmen, they are outcasts. They will always be despised. How much longer must his tribe endure being treated like animals? Not a single second longer, he promises. He did not know much about their struggle or the schemes surrounding them. If his life was full of unfair prejudice, it was time to speak up. From now on, no more suffering. You will be a vassal of House Marbus. You have my word. Those words break Walter. He weeps openly, finally placing his hand in the hand of his new master. All right, you and I are starting with a heavy choice. Baltor bows, happy to serve his new master. Soon, Esteban von Aram takes the throne, with Crown Prince Luis standing like a shadow at his side. Vassal of Eldorus, why seek an audience? He kneels, presenting a letter from the noble house of Sylvester. The prince speaks. As regent, the weight of the people and the entire duchy rests on his shoulders. He needs to handle the count's mess. His father would have been furious. He shouts without even thinking, Your Highness. He only wanted to share good news. Forgive your servant. Luis asks, What good news? Good news? Eldorus knows the prince holds all the cards right now. He cannot afford to lose favor. Luis mentions House Marbus, those objects of contempt for years. One of the 3 pillars of true darkness. He invites the prince to back House Sylvester and finally wipe out their common enemy for good. An interesting proposal. But let's not forget, House Marbus wields the terrifying power of necromancy, don't they? Starting an open war against a family like that? It could backfire and destroy everything they have built. Eldorus praises his sharp mind. House Marbus has no worthy heir left to carry on their dark legacy, but House Sylvester? They have grown strong enough to rival the Marbus name. Perfect. Simply perfect. Time to execute the plan. It's the ideal moment to eliminate those grave robbers for the Aram Empire. Success is guaranteed. He leaves the hall as Louis thanks the Emperor for such a generous, powerful decree. Father, this thorn is finally gone. Long live the Emperor. Your legacy is safe from the past now. Hand on the Emperor's shoulder, he whispers that everything will fall into place exactly as he sees fit. Meanwhile, Pullen collars Baltor. He warns that commoners still don't trust beastmen like him. It is dangerous. He suggests hiding the artifact for now. Safety first when dealing with the outside world's harsh judgment. We value you as a faithful vassal, but we cannot simply ignore what the public thinks of you. Walter's ears vanish. Pullen points a finger, warning him not to bring any unnecessary trouble to their lord. Fine, Walter agrees. Pullen smiles, calling him an ingenious young man. Crisis averted for the moment, it seems. Now, you and I need to pay attention. The main character wants to discuss a few critical matters. First, swear a loyalty that goes beyond mere words. Are you ready to give him your absolute devotion? Pullen breaks into tears. Of course, my lord. He is ready to offer everything he has to serve. He takes his hand, swearing to serve House Marbus faithfully until his very last breath on this earth. Lord Crow watches with crossed arms. This new lord really knows how to conquer even the oldest hearts, submission and dominion. That is the Marbus way. Walter nods, sharing the same deep feelings of absolute respect. But our main character has his own principles. Walter is confused. Young lord, who are you talking to? In short, he proposes a contract sealed with mana, a bond that cannot be broken by any mortal. Rejected, and he will know your heart is not sincere. Baltor explains what a mana contract means. It intertwines your very souls. An unbreakable pattern of mana that keeps secrets safe, even beyond the grave. He stands up. If there are no objections, let the ritual begin. No turning back from here on. He extends his hand. From the floor, skeletal hands emerge, clutching a mysterious, ancient-looking magical scroll. The scroll unfurls. Marbus appears as a massive lion. The demon patron of the bloodline has finally arrived. He will witness this pact. All who swear service will have their souls bound by the power of Marbus. Just wait. They are about to see that the world has changed forever. No one is safe now. The Lord of the Dead has returned. Massive energy explodes everywhere, shaking the room to its very core. Enough drama, our hero thinks. These are loyal followers. The deal is done. The contract is officially sealed. Break it, and the price is your soul. No betrayal goes unpunished when the demon is your witness. Pullen bows, terrified. Could this be the real Marbus? The legendary demon from the family's ancient, dark founding? That would explain everything. That is how the young Lord Leon obtained such overwhelming, godlike necromancy power. Walter is paralyzed by the sheer density of mana. His kind is sensitive, and this energy is absolutely crushing. It raises one big question. Who is Lord Leon? He is exactly like that menacing, giant black lion. Then, Marbus shrinks. Walter yells, "What a cute kitty. You and I both know Pullen better hush him fast." The demon demanded to know what was said. Pullen laughed nervously, praising his terrifying and awe-inspiring presence. Lord Marbus. Surely young Walter here has never witnessed anything quite this legendary, right? Fine then. But remember, you must never reveal his existence to any other mortals. No mistakes allowed. We are at war, and knowledge here means life or death. Only those he chooses can see him. As he understands it, the nobility is very interested. What was the name? Kirchuel, right? Pullen quickly clarified. Kirchuel. Walter repeated the name, remembering the lady received a letter meant for Lord Kirchuel. Marbus pointed out their next target. Meanwhile, our lead wondered about that mysterious letter. According to my knowledge, my lord. Before he could finish, Crow interrupted, claiming he knew exactly where it was. He pulled out a chest. What fools? How could they forget the loot? Marbus just sighed at this petty soul. Since he leveled the building and its owner, he decided anything not nailed down was fair game. The protagonist opened the chest to find piles of gems and a letter. Here it is, gentlemen. Marbus remarked that, surprisingly, he actually proved to be useful for once. Crow looked confused. Is that a compliment? Yes, definitely a compliment. Then the lead opened the letter, announcing he would read the contents aloud. Hear this. Enemies of House Marvos. The noble House Sylvester, by the Emperor's will, declares territorial war against your duchy. Despite the power of your title, you have neglected your sacred duty to Emperor Louis. This neglect is a grave crime. He will hold you accountable in the name of the crown. You have 1 month. Surrender now, and House Marbus will be absorbed by House Sylvester as punishment for your many sins. If you resist, prove your innocence in fair combat. The head of House Sylvester, Alan D. Sylvester, gave them 30 days. Marbus asked if that was enough time. Our lead just shrugged. He didn't care about the deadline, but he had a wicked idea. With the undead now under his mental control, a whole new world of dark fun was opening up. Sir Crow watched in shock as the protagonist assigned him a brand new mission. Later, the subordinate approached Alan. The war declaration was delivered. My lord, you should have seen that fool Kirchuel's face. He looked absolutely pathetic. Honestly, I almost ended his misery, right there on the spot. The head of the house laughed. That idiot is probably having a fit, but we need him alive. He is a useful fool. Let the Marbus power stay in his clumsy hands for now. By the way, what about the boy who knows the air? The man asked if it was Lion. No major news yet. Perhaps Kirchuel buried him somewhere. Excellent, the subordinate added. But sir, Why worry about a 14-year-old? What could a mere child possibly do? He said he should explain. What do you think is the most unfair thing that can happen to someone? He admitted he wasn't that wise. Such insights were foreign. He said, facing an enemy so strong, you have zero chance. Resistance is useless. You can only watch as your world of suffering crumbles away without mercy. No pain is greater than this. And the cause? Pure, innate talent, a gift so monstrous it makes you tremble. The subordinate was skeptical. Are you saying someone worthless could actually possess something like that? My lord warned him not to be a fool. After all, they are talking about a descendant of Wellen. With that bloodline, you can never be certain. Always weigh the odds. Yes, my lord. After a while, the protagonist looked at Crow, who had shifted forms. I must say, it is quite a spectacle. He responded with a grin. Oh, it is impressive. Is it not? The protagonist noticed the human speech sounded wild before, but now, having absorbed those memories, he mimicked him perfectly. He claimed he could offer more than just magic power, unlike a certain simple stuffed toy. Furious, Marbus started scratching him, shouting about dirty worms. Walter watched, asking if it was always this loud. Paulin told him to be quiet. Young Walter, you will live a lot longer if you just stay silent. Leon grabbed the sword off the wall. Is it time to start? They only had 1 month to show their true talents. Baltor took the sword, asking if their talents were being put to the test for the plan. He nodded. After all, what use is a vassal who just ends up dead? The choice was his. He said seriously that he was ready to overcome anything to take his rightful place. If he could prove he was the absolute most skilled, his wish would finally be granted. Calmly, he gave his word. Poland cleared his throat, breaking the silence to suggest it was time for some serious combat training. Training with the Marbus Knights would push him to his limits. He nodded. It was settled. Marbus hopped onto his shoulder, declaring it was time to move. The wolf wasn't the only one needing work. Neither had reached their full potential yet. With a determined look, our main character agreed it was time. Later, Walter faced a horde of summoned skeletons. With lethal, surgical strikes, he completely dominated the field. Gasping for air after that intense grind, he knelt down. With a faint smile, he was officially welcomed home. From that moment on, he became the ultimate vanguard for the entire army. He stood before him with a confident grin, before slowly closing his eyes. War had arrived. You and I can see the tension as Alan rides out with a message for House Marbus. He offered a peaceful way out, but they were too stubborn to drop their weapons and listen. They need to realize this reckless choice won't just end their lives. It'll take their innocent soldiers down too. Watching from the wall, he whispered, "This is where it begins." Pwen spat the word, jackals, questioning their honor. But Marbus warned him not to take the bait. The fear in their hearts was obvious. All those loud threats, just a mask for their own hesitation. Are they actually scared? After all, House Sylvester seems to hold every single advantage right now. Perched on his shoulder, he disagreed. You can't forget that their secret plans have already been exposed. He was talking about the late Kerschel. If that man were still alive, House Marbus would have surrendered immediately. His death alone changed everything. Mortals are so fragile, one small shift, and they fall into total chaos. But the enemy isn't backing down. Do they really have a hidden trump card? We're about to find out. When doubt takes over, even the strongest warrior's hand will shake. Pwen had to admit he was right. Still, even a shaking hand can be deadly. Marbus just laughed. Knowing his contractor's power eclipsed this entire army. There's no need to worry. Their lord is far more dangerous than he appears. It was hard to disagree. Even he was stunned by the sheer level of natural talent. They summoned the undead, but Leon's men crushed them. Honestly, those were just the weakest spirits imaginable. It has only been a week since he awakened, yet he is already reading mana flows with his eyes shut. Absolute genius. Crow called their new contractor a gift, a rising star that nobody saw coming. Even the legendary Marbus claimed this kid could eventually drown the entire continent in blood. No doubt about it. He will get everything he wants. Now, where are those peanuts he loves so much? He would have plenty soon. With a smirk, he told the fool they needed to start aiming much higher. He is destined for forbidden dark magic, even the power to turn back time. Then, he announced everything was ready. What is next on the training list? He turned and said they needed to move out first. They warped to the office to discuss his next skill. How much did he actually know about dark magic? He calmly replied that he knew the basics. He had studied it as part of his core development. Marbus scoffed. Was he talking about that garbage his uncle used to teach? He should forget that joke. He looked thoughtful. It seemed like the true power really depended on the individual using it. When Wellen conquered the East, People thought it was just the undead doing all the heavy lifting. Crow transformed, manifesting a sphere of pure darkness. Necromancy is really just one branch of dark magic. It means your dark mana supply, and how you control it defines exactly how strong your undead army becomes. He spoke like a true founder to his followers. Mukhar looked at him seriously and cut him off. He wasn't some follower. They were equals, friends who had survived countless battles side by side. Unlike that biting fool, he was actually proud of his loyalty. Though his face told a different story. He muttered that the guy was only really good for one thing, being incredibly sarcastic. Hiding behind a contractor? Crow laughed. Why would anyone ever need to hide from a little kitten? He had had enough of the petty bickering. Now, you and I are about to see the real spells. Marbus laid it out before the training could begin. There was one non-negotiable condition. But fair warning, this requires diving into your subconscious. Get lost in those hidden depths, and your mind is gone forever. You are a vessel with massive reserves of magical power. Once you control this energy, the noble war will be child's play compared to what you can achieve. But be warned, never forget dark magic will swallow your mana reserves whole. He took it all in with a calm look. Don't worry, he said. There is absolutely no reason to be afraid. Marbus was shocked. Why? Because the mana inside this boy was equal to, or maybe even greater than that of his legendary ancestor. Was this power a blessing or a curse? Even he wasn't sure yet, but to restore his family's glory, he had to take the gamble. Still, he couldn't promise the boy's safety during this. There was only one way to draw out that hidden mana in such short time. But even he couldn't guarantee his survival. Lon just looked at him, unfazed. So, what kind of miracle method are we talking about here? A small smile touched his lips. For a moment, it looked like light was finally returning to those hollow eyes. Looking back, it's obvious. Even then, he was driven by nothing but a raw and uncontrollable curiosity. The plan? Completely drain his mana. From there, he'd have to rely on his subconscious and potential to guide him. He began radiating massive energy, fueled by a primal hunger for power. Exhausted from the strain, he finally stopped. That should be enough, and he collapsed. Pulin caught him, wailing that he couldn't die yet. Marbus just smacked the fool with his paw. Stop touching the boy, you idiot. You need to have some actual faith in your leader. He kept crying, arguing that the Lord was still so young. Crow just sighed. Did you not hear a word? Their contractor might be the most talented predecessor yet. Finally, someone was actually saying something right for a change. His potential could rival even Wellen. Everything would be fine. So he needed to save those tears for later. Right then, Baltor burst into the office. He did it. It was a total, absolute success. You have to see our new sword master. But then he saw the young master. He rushed over, tears streaming, crying out that he could not go on. Pulin told him to get a grip. They were already making enough of a scene. He agreed. No matter what happened, he had full confidence the master would pull through everything. Marbus smiled. Mortals never change. How was such insane talent kept hidden for all these years? It's no wonder the family almost vanished. Meanwhile, our hero finds himself in a dark, empty void, wandering around aimlessly. Suddenly, ruined castle streets appeared, and there he was, a mysterious man with deep, jet-black hair. He smiled and called the boy's name. Welcome. I had a feeling you would show up here. He turned, asking for a walk. We have a lot to discuss. Stunned, the boy could only whisper father. At the stairs, Rune stopped. By coming here, you have chosen to wake the magic sleeping inside you. This was not about praise. He had loyal followers who depended on him, and he wanted them to win at any cost. He smiled at his son. You're lucky. You probably thought this was all just your imagination. Alan was the one who ultimately finished him off. This form? Just a magical echo. A result of having absolutely zero natural potential back then. Cruel fate, isn't it? But it doesn't matter now. I can still be of use to you. You failed to get Marbus's help, and you couldn't master the Necronomicon either. It's time to choose a different path. When I was alive, I created a spell that converts ancestral mana into your own pool. You'll only control a fraction at first, but it's more than enough to secure your position as leader. He looked back at him, remembering the warning. Accepting another's mana is a death sentence. You said the risk was too high, that it would shatter the caster's mind into pieces. Rune listened closely. Magic carries its owner's brand. It doesn't just bow to another mage easily, but you are the exception. Think of yourself as a completely blank slate for now. Lord Berlion von Marbus, our founder, was the only one to ever hold pure dark mana. He summoned a sphere of dark energy, our bloodline's greatest gift. The surrounding buildings began to disintegrate. He looked at his son. You are who you are. Understand that. The dark energy grew massive above them. Rune gently patted his head, telling him their time together was over. Lon looked up, asking if they would ever meet again. Rune simply nodded. As a father, he still had so much left to teach him. He compressed a sphere of pure energy and sent it flying. Lon gasped, never having felt such massive magical power before. An amulet appeared on his neck. His father called it avarice, a relic that could instantly consume anything in its path. He must never forget. Lon promised. The area began crumbling as his father said they would meet when his heart desired it most. He bowed low, promising to pray every single day for that moment to arrive. As he faded away, Rune smiled. If fate allowed it, his son would shine like a rising star, never seen before. He regretted not seeing him again. Nobody knows if this power leads to ultimate glory or the abyss of total destruction. In his darkest fears, he thought this might be the end. Meanwhile, the protagonist lay in bed, surrounded by waiting subordinates. Polonia looked on with a worried expression, asking the others if they were truly certain he would wake up. She questioned their judgment. They shouldn't even think like that. After all, the young master was only 14 years old. If this affliction caused permanent damage, how could she ever face the previous head of the family in the afterlife? Marbus commented that if the young lord failed such a simple test, they would all be reunited in death sooner than expected. Walter agreed, confident that His Excellency would succeed. He assured everyone there was absolutely no reason to worry. Crow nodded, claiming the old servant was just being dramatic. Suddenly, a strange dark energy began to leak out. Marbus smiled, finally realizing why he was delayed. Walter looked on in shock, asking what kind of magic power this was. The clouds of mana were so incredibly dense. He jumped onto his chest, announcing that he was finally coming back. You should greet your lord properly. Be ready. He is going to return as a completely different man. Suddenly his eyes snapped open. He looked down, asking them to move because the pressure was way too much. We are now 4 days before the war, at the Sylvester house, between the rival noble families. Several knights gathered in the plaza. Alan rose from his throne and declared it was time to hear the warriors. Soon, the history of the proud Marbus family will be forgotten. Together, they were about to write a brand new story. They had to follow him. Kirswell stood among the ranks, a serious expression on his face. As he gathered his energy, he mounted his horse and asked with a smirk if they could find a weakness in such a small formation. His insight was praised, and he thanked them. He laughed, saying this was the least he could do for their generosity. Alan admitted that even though something still caught him off guard, he had expected more from them. He thought these sentimental fools would guard their ancestral tombs with more passion. It was foolish to fight in the open. Kirchell noted these were necromancers, not master strategists. They weren't exactly known for their battlefield tactics. He thought they were protecting their ancestors. With a grim look, he said their greatness was dragged through the mud long ago. Still, they kept fighting to maintain a dead reputation. He nodded slowly and asked why they even bothered. He hesitated, wanting to say more, but was told to move out. They soon spotted a group approaching, led by Mac. He smiled, noting everything was going exactly as planned. He was glad to see everyone was keeping their word. Alan smirked, saying he came to find weaknesses in a fallen house. Instead, he found 100 armed soldiers waiting. Suddenly, he struck Kirchell in the neck with his blade. He asked if this little performance was meant for him. His head actually started to slide off. He calmly stated that only a true master is allowed to strike him. Using magic, his head snapped back into place. He smiled, admitting that was a truly unique experience. Totally shocked, he knew he had hit the neck. He solemnly summoned the Marbus leader, declaring it didn't even matter. He would pay for his arrogance. Did he really think he could win this fight with just a few soldiers? This was an insult to the majesty of the Sylvester clan. Leon just smiled, saying that wasn't true at all. To be insulted, you must first be a threat. He released dark energy, saying he only fought to put him in his place. As his energy hit the ground, armed skeletons began to crawl out from the earth. Alan gasped, asking if this was really necromancy. He calmly replied that he was finally getting to the truth. His words were full of surprise. It was a clash of wills against a true master of the dark arts. The summoned warriors charged into the Sylvester army. One soldier looked at him, thinking the enemy was just a boy. No matter his talent, he was still young and clearly not ready for a brutal fight to the death. I cut a path through the monsters and swung my blade to strike. Suddenly, Walter jumped in and blocked my blow. I glared at him, asking who dared to cross my path. He looked me in the eye, sword raised. He told me not to blame him, but he'd never let me reach the young master. That is when my summoned warriors began to push the enemy army back. Alan panicked and called the mages to join the fight. They unleashed lightning strikes into the crowd of my summoned creatures. I raised my sword with a cold look, calling the vanguard knights to charge together. We galloped into the heat of battle and started tearing through the undead. I had to be clear. I am naturally ruthless. Whether it is my brother, the heir, or my sister, I never saw them as family. I calmly asked if he really thought I cared about some petty family drama. Alan snapped back that a Silver Spoon Lord's son could never match his true courage. He raised his sword high, asking if I wanted revenge. He told me I would die here, filled with nothing but regret. I just stood there, unfazed. He was wrong about two things. I pulled out the Necronomicon to set him straight. First, I am not looking for revenge. And second, you do not have the strength to kill me. That is all. Days ago, Leon and the others were huddled in a tent, staring at a map. Marba noted that in centuries of life, he had seen worse tricks, but this was a massive risk. Using this area was a gamble. I sat across from him and assured him there was no better plan than this. Being too cautious would lead to a fatal mistake when the best solution was right in front of us. Crow said he trusted my plan. Why should we listen to the advice of a ball of fur anyway? Walter looked worried, but still supported me. He said he meant no disrespect to the Supreme One's wisdom. Marbus just nodded. No one cared what he thought, right? Pullen promised to mobilize every force we had. As my loyal vassal, he refused to let me stand alone in this battle. I agreed and suggested we start. I turned to the Supreme Lord and asked for permission to ask one question. I pointed to my amulet and asked if he knew the consequences of using it. He just stared back at me. Maybe death, he said. Crow just leaned in and called him a pessimistic ball of yarn. I ignored them. My father had not told me the whole truth. This amulet held power as deadly as poison. It was hard to endure in my current state. He watched me and asked if I truly wanted it for this purpose. Marbus said he would not refuse me, but that would come later. For now, I am strong enough for my goals. The gift I received is special for a common vessel. But right now, my potential is just a green fruit. My followers might be loyal, but mortals have flaws. Since I am mortal too, I know exactly what is in their minds. At any moment, they could turn on me just like they did my father. Was it worth the risk? Right then, I opened the Necronomicon, and dark energy poured out. Alan trembled, asking if I thought I was untouchable. M looked at me with a serious face and released a massive surge of energy. I was stunned. It was mana the color of the darkest night, with an aura of pure shadow. He used it with perfect precision. Where did he get this kind of control? It was absolutely insane. I looked at them and gave the command. The loyal servants of the Marbus family in the afterlife. They must obey me. Alan looked on in terror. His gut told him that whatever was about to happen, he had to stop it now. He turned to his soldiers and screamed that they could not let me finish the spell. I ignored him. The true heir of the Marbus family was calling to arms. I ordered them to answer and fulfill their duty. Immediately after, a horde of warriors began to crawl out from beneath the ground. Marbus watched from a distance, swearing that I was just as wild and undisciplined as Welland before me. That was the moment the summoned soldiers attacked. The enemy was frozen in pure shock. A powerful monster crushed several men in one blow. Alan realized the truth and shouted that it was a trap. I had lured them straight into the graveyard. Now, an entire army of the dead served me. All eyes were on me as I gripped the amulet and coughed up blood. He screamed for me to stop before I died. He begged me to end this madness and promised to spare me. I just told him it was a shame to disappoint him. He thought back to Marvis's question. Why exactly did these mortals deserve such a massive risk? He would rather our hero avoid unnecessary dangers until his raw talent finally reached its absolute peak. Right now, he simply lacks the power to grant mercy, let alone save lives. He asked the Lord why they should wait for fruit to ripen. Why not pick it early and let it mature later? By then, Alan's army had been wiped out. He was on his knees, asking if revenge was the goal. Getting a yes, he grabbed the hero's robe. Even though he didn't deserve it, he begged for a shred of mercy. He swears they will never cross the house of Marbus ever again. He promised not to reveal the hero's power. Our lead just looked at him. When did they become friends exactly? He looked up and shouted that he knows the truth. Vengeance only fuels a never-ending cycle of hatred. They locked eyes. He claimed he was forced into this, hoping a fellow noble would understand the pressure. A man must do whatever it takes to survive. Our hero looked away, wondering if there was truth in those words. The burden of a family head is truly massive. Terrified, Alan nodded. He claimed that under such monstrous oppression, he had no choice but to commit those horrible, bloody atrocities. The hero looked at him coldly. There was no reason for forgiveness here, but it wasn't about a personal grudge. He would end his life based on one cold calculation. His existence provided zero benefit to the house. Marbus looked on with pure disgust, calling him arrogant. He would regret this, but by then, it would be too late. That power he used so carelessly? Not a game. Before he could finish, a single sword strike sent his head flying. He recalled the army. Feeling completely drained, he collapsed, but Baltor caught him. "Don't panic," Marbus said as he approached. "It is just a common case of total mana exhaustion. The young master's talent matches his ancestors. But one question remains. Is this boy actually ready to handle such a terrifying potential? A monster is growing inside him that he cannot control. It is a very risky deal." Exchanging every part of his being, he insisted on returning to business. Demons are interfering with the human world now, a terrible omen. After a while, Pullen announced that his master had finally regained his senses and was awake. He begged for forgiveness for failing his duty. He wanted to go to prison to finally atone. Marvis laughed, saying nobody would stop the show. Crow just watched, thinking the whole thing was quite charming. That heartless furball got angry and asked if he was a demon. What kind of empathy? He wouldn't endure those insults for long. Lon stood up and said prison wasn't necessary. He had done his job well, and he promised him that. Walter noted that without their leader, Sylvester would collapse. No need to worry about another invasion anytime soon. Pullen eagerly agreed, sure that under such wise leadership, House Marbus would finally recover. He feared a new problem was rising. Our lead calmly asked him what kind of trouble it was. He was ashamed to even say it, but the house was ruined. Honestly, they were in massive debt. Marbus asked what the issue was. Couldn't they just demand reparations from the other house? Sylvester explained that normally that would work, but a royal decree has officially banned all reparation claims. He was furious and asked why. Apparently, the noble houses of Reinhofer, Soder, and Marvis are tied to dark forces. To prevent a massive uprising, the Imperial family is strictly blocking all compensation requests to keep everyone under their control. He sighed in disgust. It was a total disaster, both inside the house and out. The hero asked how much they owed. Pullen held up 5 fingers. 5,000 gold coins, maybe? He shook his head. Worried, our hero hoped it wasn't 500,000. Unfortunately, my lord, you are exactly right. The total debt of our house is a staggering 500,000 gold coins. At that moment, Richelle de Famel, the head acolyte of the famous Mage Tower and founder of Aramet, announced she had finally reached Marbus lands. Beside her was Carleen, the leader of the sleeper criminal gang. A ruthless debt collector stepped forward and said he was truly happy to see her. He looked at her, claiming the school's debt was paid. She just smiled ironically, asking if that was the only reason. He shouldn't worry. She wasn't his debtor. He apologized, saying he was still shaken from dealing with those brutal collectors. However, in these dark days, the very existence of the magic tower was on the line. She smirked, reminding him to always read the fine print. Leon just turned away. Enough talk, he snapped. Debt collectors are never patient. Just as Pullen mentioned the money, a sudden knock echoed at the door. Leon went to check, but a strange, heavy energy filled the air. Even Marbus felt the chilling pressure. He hoped things wouldn't get messy. He returned to the group, announcing that his lord had some visitors. Leon asked how many. Only 2, a man and a woman. His servant replied before they entered. Rochelle sat down, sipping tea and thanking them for the hospitality. She was the director of Aramet School. Then there was Carlini. She introduced herself as the leader of the Sleeper's powerful southern branch. "Welcome to the House of Marbus," Leon said calmly. Both women just stared back with faint, mysterious smiles. Each guest was a massive threat. Walter was worried, but Crow knew their lord was stronger than he looked. There was nothing to fear. He would win. Carlini congratulated him on his recent victory. She expected the war loot would finally settle his massive debt. Not exactly. Leon's face darkened the moment the money was mentioned. This was getting serious. How much did they owe? Pullen whispered that the loan was taken when the family had 0 leverage. The bulk of the debt belonged to her. Leon stared at the woman across from him. She led the Sleeper's southern branch, one of the most dangerous criminal syndicates on the entire continent. These are the worst loan sharks imaginable. If you don't pay, they sell you to dark mages for experiments. Carlin smiled. She could see he understood exactly how brutal her line of work could be. She was flattered, but business is business. No more extensions. She was here to collect the payment. She pulled out a list. Pay 10% immediately, she demanded. Now, the atmosphere was truly suffocating. He could pay the rest later, but she reminded him of the brutal 30% annual interest rate. She suggested paying it all now. 400,000 gold pieces? At 30% interest? That was impossible. The math was nightmare fuel. The debt was ballooning by 120,000 gold every year. Who would sign such an insane contract? Poland stayed silent behind him. It was Leon's own father. Rachel tried to step in, telling Carlin not to push so hard. Let the man enjoy his victory. She doubted he had that kind of cash. Carlin turned, eyes cold. Why are you interfering in my business? If there is one thing she absolutely hates, it is being interrupted while talking to a client. Careless words have a high price, usually death. She turned and said she had heard enough. She headed for the exit, promising to return. What a waste of good tea, she laughed. Leon tried to speak, but she cut him off. No excuses about being broke or needing more time. He'd heard that same story from his father way too many times. He thought with a grimace. Part of him wanted to kill her, but Marbus warned him. This enemy wouldn't give him an opening. If he fought her now, he would be pulverized in a heartbeat. Crow was disappointed with the contract, but Poland insisted the late Lord Run had good intentions. Walter told his lord to be brave. They would find a way. He trusted Leon's legendary wit. He called out to her, asking for mercy if she could grant it. Everyone was shocked. Rachel looked at the portrait of Wellen. This trip to see Leon was definitely worth the effort. She felt massive mana reserve swirling inside him. Getting him into Aramid Academy would be a massive win. She needed a way to win him over. She conjured a ball of pure energy for the director. Back at the academy, everyone was in a total panic because she had vanished without a word. She'd explain the missing permit later. Right now, there was something far more important to discuss. What is it? She asked with a smirk. How many gold coins are in those chests? Carlin was stunned. Did he really think the sleepers were just a bunch of mindless, common thugs? She released a burst of energy that shattered her teacup. We are far more calculated than you imagine. Walter drew his blade instantly. How dare you threaten his grace in his own home? He roared. Carlin smiled. Only those who fail their duties face my wrath. Is that clear? We have no gold. She demanded an explanation, but he just told her that, objectively speaking, everything felt completely empty. A look of shock crossed her face, followed by a smirk. Now she finally understood why he was trembling like a scared little puppy. She unleashed a massive wave of energy, her voice turning cold. Step aside, she commanded. It was time to show those Moors exactly what happens. Rachel stormed into the office and shouted for him to stop, but he just raised a hand, insisting they shouldn't even think about burying Aramina's future young talents. Leon just stared at his comrade, looking completely and utterly confused. Walter grinned just as he expected. The young master had a plan. Is it really Aramina? Our lead asked. Carlin glared, then took a long, shaky breath to calm down. Mist made it clear. He asked his comrades to step back. This was something they needed to settle behind closed doors. Then the main character laid it out. Join Aramina, and they'd cover 10% of that debt to Carline. He understood the deal, right? Rochelle raised her glass with a smile. It's true. During that recent border war with the Sylvesters, the main character used necromancy. Leon tilted his head, asking why Rachel was so sure about that. Rachel's answer was simple. The main character couldn't have won otherwise. Carlin probably felt the same, which is exactly why she's standing here, isn't it? Carlin just smiled. These mages were sharp. It wasn't exactly a secret, and Rachel was spot on with her guess. She also believed her client, the leader of the Marbus clan, had reclaimed their ancient power. That's the real reason he went out hunting. Marbus spoke up, asking if she actually believed they were capable of paying back that debt. Carlin raised a finger. Honestly, sometimes she thought about it, but she didn't believe they could pay up now, so they just have to table this conversation for later. Marbus figured he'd just let the debt pile up even higher. Leon realized Rochelle wanted to hire him while Carlin was just focused on getting paid. He didn't get the confidence. What if that massive power of the necromancer never actually returns to him? Maybe other nobles backed our lead, or perhaps it was Mercer's mercenaries. Either way, Carlin noted that that kind of help costs a fortune. Rochelle just laughed. She didn't believe for a second that this war was won with mere money. That's why she focused on Marbus's unique necromancy. It was a once-in-a-lifetime chance to bring the dark art back to life. Carlin added that even if he only had a fragment of Welland's power, investing in the continent's unrecognized genius was still a winning move. Leon looked over, asking if that meant the debt wasn't going anywhere. Carlin reached into her pocket. Loan sharks are no joke. She pointed her gun right at the main character and said, "That's why." A tense Rachel raised her hand, asking for a quick private talk. This level of talent was absolutely vital for the future of Aramina. Carlin holstered her weapon and told them to do whatever they wanted, but let one thing be known: collecting her debt was the only priority. With that, she opened the door and walked out. Rochelle smiled. They barely made it out of that one alive, didn't they? Our lead noted he wasn't exactly overflowing with trust for her. Rochelle wasn't human, right? She just smirked, saying the same could be said about him. Then she pointed at Marbus, revealing Leon was tangled with one of the 72 demons. Marbus smirked. This mage could see his true form without even having a contract in place. He shifted his appearance instantly, demanding to know who Rachel really was. She surged with mana, and black horns began to sprout from her head. Marbus pointed it out: a dragon. He thought they'd all been wiped out during the Great Anti-Magic War. Our lead was stunned, but Marbus confirmed it. Between the horns and the tail, there was no mistaking what she was. Rochelle was curious too. Why would one of the 72 demons suddenly want to hang around humans? The reasons were unknown, but definitely tied to the first head. Don't worry, our main character insisted. He was certain that Lord Marbus was actually on the side of the humans. Marbus was different from the others. He said everything was fine, but even as a demon, he didn't share their twisted point of view. Rachel raised her hand, noting that Marbus had absolutely no reason to go interfering in petty human conflicts. Leon asked what was expected of him besides joining Aramina. He needed to know the catch. Rachel explained their school was meant for true hermits. The main character would get paid for his membership, but in exchange, he had to give everything he had to rise as a powerful mage. Leon asked if that was really all there was to it. Marbus just waved it off. He wasn't buying the silence for a second. Rachel needed to tell the whole truth. She smiled, noting how sensitive they were, but she was going to tell them everything anyway. No joining other schools just for the money. Those are the rules. Marbus asked if this was just a way to suppress the competition. Rachel nodded. That was one reason, but the main one was different. Rochelle dropped a heavy token onto the table and continued. Besides Aramina, there are 2 other elite magic schools, and one that is completely obsessed with worshipping demons. Marbus knew they were up to no good. If only he'd woken up a little bit sooner. He asked what they were trying to achieve. Rachel paused for a moment. Their goal? To resurrect the Demon King, Baal. The great war against the demons was about to return. This was humanity's first massive clash against them. The tragic event where King Esteban finally found his eternal rest in the dirt. Radiant streams of mana surged across the land from the king's staff, while the demons watched in pure terror. The earth shuddered as demons draped themselves in dark mana. Wellen grabbed the book, energy pouring from its pages. He snapped it shut. Calmly, Wellen and his crew stared down at the demons, who were now completely petrified. Rachel explained that during that brutal war, the king finally sealed Baal away. But that seal is failing fast. Our main character mentioned hearing a dark rumor that His Majesty has finally lost his mind and gone insane. Esteban was once a legend, but now they call him the foolish archmage. Rachel confirmed the sad truth of it. Demons always find a way back. Honestly, they should have noticed that by now, considering who they were facing. He realized it then: many races, even the dragons, died in that war. It all adds up. Rachel is being honest. Liam asked the big question. Did Rachel stop him from joining other schools because one of them was hiding demons? Rachel agreed. That is why he needs to join Aramina. She is certain he will uncover many secrets there. Marbus pointed out the high cost, but Rachel countered they cannot just run from their money problems forever. Lion asked if there was any way for him to start making a steady income in this world. A 500,000 gold debt is a nightmare. Rachel went quiet, covering her mouth, then she smiled at the solution. As it turns out, the Adventurers Association and Carlin were actually quite close with the leader of the whole group. If he handles the orders and earns a gold badge, he could make 1,000 gold per job. Lon was totally shocked. He bowed low, begging Carlin to help him out. Marvis just groaned, calling our main character a total, complete idiot. Crow crossed his arms and barked at Marbus to stop insulting their lord. Our hero had acted on pure impulse. Marbus asked where he even got that idea from. Crow stood his ground. The old man was the one who said it. Marbus smacked his forehead in frustration. Rachel shouted that Carlin was definitely eavesdropping and would likely help them out anyway. The door flew open. Carlin admitted Rachel was sharp, but then she caught sight of Marvis and looked completely stunned. Rachel introduced them, calling the demon an ally of the young lord. Carlin just smirked. Wait, are you actually serious? They always cause trouble. Cut to some time later, the group is trekking through the thick, green woods together. Carlin asked if she really had to escort them all the way to the guild as well. She seemed annoyed. Rachel looked back. Considering the thousands of gold he would pay, this was the absolute least she could do. Right? Confused, Lion asked, "What is this place? An adventurer's guild?" From his shoulder, Marbus admitted he was curious. Too, such a place did not exist before. It is new. Carlin explained it is a hub for various different tasks. You can team up to split the loot, or just go solo. This is the spot. We have finally arrived. If you are weak, you will vanish on your first mission. But if you have the skills, you will get rich. Marbus called it a waste of life. Rachel disagreed. She says the guild itself is not inherently good or evil. With their recommendation, you can work as a knight or mage anywhere. It is the most profitable path for experts. Our main character wanted the full scoop, more details on that gold badge and how the ranking system actually works. Rachel agreed and turned to Carlin. Annoyed, she asked if he was giving her orders now. Fine. 5 ranks exist: copper, silver, platinum, and titanium. From weak to strong. Higher ranks mean access to the massive, high-paying missions. Leon asked if the real money was in the titanium badges. Rachel just laughed. Yes, but it is very rare. There are only about a dozen titanium badge holders in the entire continent. That is just how exclusive it is. Their missions are worth thousands of gold coins. Not many clients are that rich. Later, they approached the Empire's Knights. Carlin told them they had to start from the bottom by earning a copper badge first. No shortcuts. The Empire's laws make it brutal for rookies. Our hero stayed silent, while Rachel asked how to climb the ranks. After a bit at the pub, Rachel told the master to start with a small trial. They were finally there. Leon scanned the crowd and asked, "Is this the guild?" Our protagonist looked around, taking in every single detail. The guild leader, Rally Finelia, immediately tagged them as trouble. The group kept moving, cutting through the busy tables. The members were chatting when Carlin walked by. "Is that Carlin?" one whispered. She looked at him with pure greed. I would not want to ask someone like that for cash. What was she doing here? Is Rachel with her? A man called out to the director, surprised that someone as young as Rachel was already running a magic school. One guild member took a bitter drink, complaining that her presence had completely ruined the taste of his beer. The world is never fair. Rachel smirks, noting how everyone here hates him. Carlin snaps. Enough talk. Move it. Don't waste energy on guild trash. Leon just looks at them. Where is the person you're looking for? He scans the room. Surprisingly, he cannot sense a single powerful presence in this entire place. He was wrong. Leon couldn't feel the mana locked onto them. Even Crow, in human form, felt that pressure. Leon shuts his eyes. A mana circle glows beneath him. He gasps, eyes snapping open. He actually felt that. Riley lunges at the protagonist. In a heartbeat, both she and Carlin have their weapons drawn and ready. Riley's cold steel hits his neck. Carlin's gun, pressed right against his skull. One wrong move and he is dead. The guild members stand frozen in shock. Carlin just chuckles. Riley has definitely gotten more aggressive lately. Riley glares back. I told you not to use my name so lightly. Leon asks if she is the strongest. Riley just shrugs it off. I don't remember promising you anything. Then she stares at him. Who is he? Marbus smiles. She is a total monster, probably stronger than anyone here. Leon introduces himself as the Marbus leader. That was his name. A moment later, the whole group is settled on the sofa to talk business. Riley sips her tea. Rumors say the Marbus clan has a new leader. So young. Leon's magic potential is terrifying. She can see it clearly. Riley turns serious. What is an aristocrat doing in our humble house of adventurers? Carlin gives a strained smile. Circumstances forced his hand. Riley scoffs. Traveling with a demon is weird enough. Your friends are even weirder, Riley retorts. Marbus quickly apologizes to his contractor for the sudden tension. Crow nods along with his comrade. Even the cat is starting to sound reasonable. Marbus just yells in frustration. Leon stays calm. He has his reasons. He needs to pay off his massive debts, so he needs work. Carlin stays firm. This is an anonymous guild. Is that not the perfect excuse to turn him away? Rachel smiles, asking for a chance for Leon. Riley warns them. These missions? People die on them constantly. Leon doesn't blink. Death is a constant companion in House Marbus. Besides, Rachel already gave him the heads up. He figures nothing could be worse than being stuck in debt to Carlin for the rest of his life. Riley nods slowly. One chance. She pours tea, and suddenly, mana threads weave across the floor. Leon is mesmerized, Marbus explains. It is teleportation magic, a high-level formula. yet she recreates it like it is nothing at all. This sorceress is the real deal. In a blink, the room vanishes. Now, they're surrounded by cold, steel knights. Riley stands up. The entrance exam is simple. Among these statues, only one holds mana. Only one is real. Find it, she commands. You have 30 minutes. If you fail, you're going back home. Kid, ready? Leon takes a breath. I will try my best. Riley begins the final countdown. She tells Carlin to set the hourglass. Carlin huffs, mana radiating from her hands. I am so done with this. She agrees to help just this once. With a flick of mana, Carlin lifts the hourglass into the air. Leon stands among the knights. He looks away. Riley warns him these statues move fast. One raises its weapon. Riley tells him to get ready to fight. Suddenly, the statues blur into motion, charging straight at the protagonist. A statue strikes with heavy force. Leon dodges, his head spinning. A blade swings, but he ducks just in time. Carlin groans in annoyance. Rachel asks if Lady Riley made this test a little bit too difficult for him. This is a challenge that even master-tier mages would have a nightmare trying to clear. Leon's talent is high, but he is still just a kid. A kid who understands the pain of the weak. His chances are slim to none. For now, all they can do is sit back and observe his struggle. Marbus knows these statues aren't strong, but finding the real one? Nearly impossible. Its mana signature is tiny. Crow rubs his chin. It is a tough task, but even a fool knows Leon won't go down without a fight. Marbus wonders what his next move is. Riley thinks it is risky to let a kid like this in. Great talents can break the world. Leon leaps to the side, his eyes locked onto his stone rivals. He spots it. Leon raises his hands, summoning spheres of mana. He begins channeling dark energy through his body. The dark mana instantly wraps around the statues' bodies. Leon knows this is his only shot at winning. Everyone is stunned. Leon shrugs. Lord Marbus taught me something. You won't always have a big spell ready. You have to use what you've got. Leon focuses, creating lethal spears of pure darkness. Everyone's jaws dropped as they watched him, wondering if those spears were even real. Our hero just raised his hand, aiming those weapons right at his foes. They slammed into the statues with terrifying force, mana sparks exploding everywhere in the air. Stone knights crumbled into nothing but dust. Marbus couldn't believe it, calling the whole thing pure insanity. Carlin reached out to the stone, stunned. This guy's mana reserves and control were absolutely off the charts. But hold on, the test looks for the one statue with actual mana. It seemed like he failed, but Rochelle knew there was another way. To pull this off, he would have to use this method and lead them to Aramina. Leon closed his eyes, calling upon the wandering spirits of the underworld. A true son of the Marbus house was finally making his move. Dark energy swirled around him like a storm. He commanded them to rise, and the ground itself began to tremble as rocks lifted. Rochelle just grinned like a maniac. She knew Leon had a master plan from the very start. Mana is life force. Kill it first, then bring it back as an undead servant. That is classic necromancy logic right there. But who even thinks of that? The ritual leader laughed, realizing this kid was going to go far. Carlin finally admitted it. Leon was an elite sorcerer. Honestly, we all thought it was just about his mana at first. He found a way to use that power instantly. Riley was left speechless, wondering how he even pulled it off. Leon's answer was simple. He killed them and raised the only living one. That was all he did. Riley questioned his logic, but Leon knew his golems. He was playing a whole different game based on his knowledge. To him, they were living things. He pointed at the enemy, declaring that this specific golem was the only real one there. Leon checked the hourglass. Time hadn't even passed yet. Did he actually pass the test or was he too fast? Riley smiled, impressed. But Leon played it cool, saying tactical thinking is just the bare minimum for any noble leader. It is official. He passed. She is giving him a silver badge because bronze is just too weak for this power. No one argued. Carlin was just shocked Riley did not give him silver from the moment he walked in. Rachel laughed, thinking about all the crazy things we have seen on this trip. The Marbus clan really found a winner. Time for some congratulations. Marbus gave a calm smile, looking toward the leader of the Macrow faction. Crow was clearly annoyed. He snapped that Marbus could not even take a compliment with any bit of dignity. Then Walter literally smashed through the wall, amazed that most of those golems were actually pure magic constructs. Sometimes a living soul becomes a golem. Using that, Lord Leon sniffed out the real one hidden among the fakes. He knew he could do it. Riley admitted this was a one-in-a-million situation for any adventurer. It hurt to say, but he had the goods. Leon gave a quick thanks to the guild leader. Business time. He asked about the pay for silver missions. Marbus was already thinking about that massive pile of gold. Rachel chuckled at his bluntness. Carlin explained it depends, but we are talking about 300 gold on average. That is the average. Leon's debt is huge, so he better aim for that gold badge fast. Rochelle called it a solid start. Most rookies wait years before a guild leader hands them a silver badge. Carlin agreed. Rally is usually all about playing it safe and being stable. She told him his first mission and instructions would be ready by tomorrow morning. For now, go rest. Leon bowed, and with a flick of Rally's hand, the golems were back on their feet. Walter gasped. She restored them that fast? That is some god-tier power right there. The mana was one thing, but that control? Walter knew the guild leader was a total monster. Rochelle just smiled and called for a break. That is enough excitement for one day. Rally sat back, thinking about our main character. She really thought the test would have ended much sooner, but he came up with something totally new. Finding life energy in a golem was child's play for the young lord. Still, he hesitated at the very end. She wondered why he paused. Rally stood up, hiding her true power. She knew the Marbus clan always walked that fine line between life and death. After a long fall, they finally caught the beast, but those lifeless eyes of his really bothered her. Where is his mind? What is he actually planning? Later, the comrades met up in the master's office. Rally held up a scroll. This was it, his very first official mission. The target is Salishi, the leader of the Ardenism sect. You and I are about to see him hunt a priest. Rally confirmed the rumors. South of the capital, in Selassie, a priest's corruption is spreading like a plague. Our hero has to play this mission perfectly. 100 gold coins are on the line. Carlin asks if the leader is being too harsh on a newbie. Rally looks annoyed, but she knows he can handle it. Rachel just smiles and asks if the death traps are active. Honestly, it doesn't even matter. This mission is finally a breakthrough. Lion promises his best, but Rally warns fail, and he drops to bronze rank. It's only fair. The guild leader looks at Rochelle and tells her to give our hero all the support possible. Carlin shouts that it is complicated. She is seriously ready to just leave this place. Rochelle just laughs. She is honored to see what this young lord is truly capable of doing. Carlin is fuming. Does her opinion even count anymore? Leon just bows, showing his gratitude. He explains that his father taught him to accept help with gratitude. Carlin is left completely speechless. Crow smiles. The Lord really knows how to charm people. Marbus, though, he doesn't see the surprise. It is a demon's nature to submit to mortals. But Baldur points out that Leon is human, not a demon. Marbus turns serious, and Walter is terrified. Leon won't fail. They need that gold right now. Meanwhile, at the church, Bishop Cadon's twin daughters are praying fervently over a sacred chalice. Bishop Cadon, the leader of the Arden sect, looks at his daughters and begs for their forgiveness. A prophecy whispers through the dark. Only one will rise as a holy virgin, blessed by the Creator's divine will. One shall rise, the other shall be forgotten. To become one of them must die. The continent's faith is split in two. One side worships the goddess, the creator of the Philosopher's Stone. Her name is the winged goddess Arden, and she is worshipped by the holy servants of light. The second path follows the darkness, and its army of 172 demons, including the legendary Baal. Besides a few human outcasts, almost everyone follows the faith of Arden. Then there are the chosen ones, blessed with divine power, holy virgins who perform actual miracles across the land. A carriage rattles down a forest path. The driver hears a noise, but his passengers are already inside. The driver asks if they are sure about Selassie. He warns them religious unrest makes it a nightmare to reach. Even the pilgrims have stopped going there. So, why are they so desperate to visit? Rachel calls it a long, boring story. Carlin just nods and slams a heavy bag of gold onto the table. Carlin tells him that gold is all the info he needs. If not, they will just find someone else. She is certain there are other drivers who are not nearly this dramatic. The driver agrees if they can guarantee safety, but that gold clearly clouded his judgment. Now, he is doubting. The city of Selassie was just another tragic victim of the religious wars tearing the world apart. The new cardinal promised protection, but crumbled under pressure. It was all a cold-blooded grab for sacred power. The lack of a new miracle worker was the final nail in the coffin for their dying faith. Rumors of a lost blessing are spreading. Lion's true goal? Exposing the absolute corruption of Bishop Cadon. He notes that even this mission is starting to look problematic. Marbus just smiles. He does not care about some saint, and he tells our hero not to worry either. With Leon's current power, These priests are nothing compared to the standards Rachel expects him to meet. While Marbus was imprisoned, humans actually got stronger. Not enough to beat him, but they should not be underestimated. Carlin agrees. Since they are hunting a priest's soul, they have to deal with the goddess Arden's massive influence. Their faith has been crumbling ever since. The holy virgins completely vanished from the world. Rachel suspects the real issue is that holy virgins only ever seem to appear in priestly bloodlines. It was always that way. But now the situation has turned much more dangerous. Leon agrees. This time, the priest had twins instead of one heir. The church's very foundation is falling apart. Only one child can inherit that divine power. It simply cannot be split between two sisters. Marbus adds that inherited supernatural power is absolute. It can never be shared with anyone else. One daughter is destined to die. Looking at him, Rachel thinks Leon is one strange guy. Our protagonist is a complete mystery. The carriage grinds to a halt as the driver announces they have finally arrived. You and I are looking at the religious heart of the entire continent, the holy city of Salici. After a moment, Glazer, the archbishop's head butler, paces down the hall and calmly pushes the heavy doors open. Glazer approaches His Holiness, reporting that the guild has arrived to officially accept their high-stakes request. Cadone doesn't look happy. He asks sternly if the butler is absolutely sure these people aren't Imperial intelligence spies. Glazer confirms the Infinite Lotus Guild gave their word. The priest stresses that absolute secrecy is their top priority. He has to save his daughter. A bit later, Glazer heads out to officially welcome their mysterious guests. Rachel cuts straight to the point, asking if the butler was the one investigating the archbishop's corrupt crimes. Glazer is surprised the head of Aramina came personally. Rachel apologizes she is not the one handling this specific mission. The butler is stunned. Who else could be trusted with this? Our main character just watches him, completely unfazed. Glazer is skeptical, asking if our main character is too young for this. This must remain a secret from the archbishop. Leanne pulls out a silver badge. The butler gasps. Is that a real silver rank badge from the Adventurers Guild? Our hero speaks up. Before they dive into the details, he has one very important question to ask. The archbishop's daughters vanished without a trace. Did they actually stand against their own father's divine will? Stunned, Glazer feels a chill. He bows his head and suggests moving somewhere private. This is going to be a long story. Soon, the group is gathered around a table inside, joined by the holy virgins and the butler himself. Glazer watches our protagonist closely, thinking about how truly desperate their situation has become for it to reach this. Salici's influence is fading fast, but relying on a kid this young, it feels almost impossible for him to accept. Lien shuts down the doubt immediately. We haven't even reached the main issue yet, so drop the unnecessary skepticism. He hopes Glazer understands the stakes, though it remains to be seen if the butler can actually provide real help. Glazer wonders if the kid is reading his mind high-level magic stuff. Our main character just tells him to stop hiding things. We all know His Eminence made the request. So, why not stop the games and reveal the real core problem? Glazer is blown away. He realizes he can't hide anything from this kid. He folds his hands, finally showing respect. With a heavy expression, the butler asks for a moment so he can explain the full, dark truth. Years ago, the priest's daughter stood over a ritual bowl. Suddenly, glowing magic seals appeared right on their chests. The priest is devastated, covering his face. Was the prophecy real? What kind of terrible future waits for his daughters? A woman explains that the holy power has been split. To use its full strength, only one girl can remain. The priest snaps. Does that mean he has to murder one of his daughters just to claim the full power? The woman trembles in fear. Suddenly, the door creaks open and Imperial Commander Caliban marches into the church. He introduces himself with cold authority, barely offering a fake apology for intruding on their sacred space. Caliban reaches for a scroll. By the absolute authority of His Majesty, he has a royal decree to deliver. He announces the Emperor's will. It is decreed that two sons cannot exist under the same sky. Surely the Holy See understands this. Only one daughter can remain as the miracle once they come of age. One girl would rule, while the other would be used merely to fuel the saint's divine power. They plan to burn the false saint to purify her. The priests are outraged. How could the king be this cruel? How could His Majesty burn a child? Caliban retorts that the king is the father to all people. He tells the priest to trust the king's heavy decision. Then, Caliban coldly orders his men to move out. It is over. The priest collapses to his knees, crying out to the goddess. Why must he face such trials? He already lost his twins once. And now this? He weeps, wondering what sin he committed to deserve this nightmare. Glazer finishes his story. Rachel summarizes basically, no miracle maiden has appeared to inherit this power for decades. Then, the bishop had twins, both equally blessed by Arden. That is how the divine power ended up split. Do you get it now? The butler nods, the weight of the situation finally sinking in for everyone. He quietly admits he wants to save both daughters. That is the real reason he contacted the guild. Glazer knows this is treason against the Emperor's will. Our hero, Leanne, listens intently to the butler's confession. Now, can I speak with the victims directly? Glazer agrees, and our protagonist requests to do it in private. Max finally stood up and looked the sisters in the eye. Leon knelt, asking the unthinkable. Is one of them truly willing to die for the other? Marbus was outraged. Where is the contractor's sense of courtesy? Our hero stayed cold. Sometimes, courtesy just gets in the way of getting results. He was ready to find a way to save them both, but that wouldn't shield his family from the Emperor's fury. In the worst case, one of them would have to make the sacrifice. Leon asked with total seriousness if they were ready. These wonderful holy maidens really are something else, aren't they? People gave them that grand title, but there's honestly nothing noble about the life they've been forced to live. For these sisters, it was a curse. Since the moment they were born, massive demons have circled their burning city. As the citizens scattered in every direction, the priest stood on the balcony and let out a desperate cry. Damn it. The holy maidens were always needed, but how can they fight this threat now without the divine light? Get back, Your Eminence. The knight warned it was dangerous. The priest just screamed at those hellish spawns. No forgiveness in this life or the next. Those who ignore the divine will are going to get exactly what they deserve. Long ago, Leia prayed for the goddess to watch over them. What an honor for her son to be the next holy maiden. But great honor brings heavy responsibility, the priest warned. Honestly, the weight of that duty terrified her. She lived in fear that her child, despite the honors of a holy virgin, would be used as a mere instrument of faith. Leia reached for Cardan's hand and told her love not to worry. I will raise our child to be strong, she promised. I'll be the one to train them myself. She only asked for permission to name the child Elisha, a name given in hopes of creating a paradise on earth. Alicia. It fits perfectly, doesn't it? Sadly, not every child gets the chance to grow up with a mother's wisdom. A brutal birth drained her of all her strength. She never even got the chance to welcome them into this world. Their tragic destiny was set in stone. Misery followed them from birth, a cruel joke from fate that simply couldn't be undone. That was the trial the goddess sent them. The girls just sat there, staring at our main character. One sister bowed her head in humility. It's her, she whispered. The other snapped back. No, she's the one who must go. I was born first. Only I can fulfill mother's will. My sister knows she is better than me in every possible way. Compared to her, I'm just an imposter. The girl hung her head and sobbed, begging not to hear those words anymore. Our hero watched them. Look, I don't pretend to understand your situation, ladies. But if I've got this right, you both want to die right now. So tell me, where exactly is the problem? Wait, contractor, Marbus shouted. You have to save both lives. If they both die, you won't get a single reward for this mission. Leon just smirked. You're as sharp as ever, sir. Your wisdom is truly something to behold. He believed only a method where both survived would satisfy them. The girl promised they'd reward his efforts. For sure, they only had one request, that their father doesn't suffer. No matter what happens to them, he is not to blame. Exactly. The other sister agreed. Father always did his best. Leon nodded. He understood the ladies perfectly. Then he asked about the trials they faced. So, I assume one of you is meant to be burned alive? Yes, exactly, the girl replied. In 2 days, if we don't have another plan, I'll be the sacrifice. Her sister screamed. No, not 2 days. We don't have that kind of time. This is the deal. No signatures needed. Our hero wanted to find a way out of this trap. Sir Rochelle waved his hand and suggested they first verify the unique marks that prove they are saints. Can I see the marks? Leon asked. The girl said yes, but warned they were hidden in several places. The sister suggested that everyone leave the room for a moment, except for Lord Lion and the lady. Carline was ready to kick the mage out, regardless of where those marks were. Retail asked what that was supposed to mean. As the only archmage present, it has to be me. Carlin kicked everyone out, ensuring he'd be the only one to check the marks without anyone else staring at the girls. He pulled off his gloves, and the two sisters shared a long, nervous look. They lowered their dresses because the marks were on their chests. Our hero realized magic won't be enough to transfer this power. I have to admit it, Carlin said. Based on the location, I see why you had trouble showing these to anyone. Marbus spoke up. He only saw one real solution to this mess. Humans might need time to accept this, but in the end, one of them must die. There is no other way. That terrifying power, and a fate destined to crush two innocent souls. Marbus noticed an expression of pure, cold fury on our hero's face. That rage was coming from deep within his heart. Louise took a seat in the hall and finally spoke. Caliban declared that the miracle maiden must reveal herself today. Prince Louis agreed. After 20 years, the people are finally ready to cheer for her, but the sky is heavy today. Caliban announced the grim prelude to the ascension, the public burning of the witch. Louis noted that while the previous maiden prayed for twins, they had waited far too long for these girls to grow. Suddenly, he appeared. He asked if virtue wasn't simply granting life to those who want it and death to those who don't. What did that mean? Leon replied that one of these girls was lying. Was he absolutely sure about that? Only he could see it, given his dark connection to death. One desperately wants to live, while the other is ready to die. The thought haunted him. Who deserves life? Marbus asked if it wasn't a bit late to start questioning their path now. He admitted he was terrified. Nobody ever taught him how to handle a choice where every soul is at stake. A moment later, Louis stood before the crowd. "Welcome everyone," he shouted. "I am Louis von Aram. By the Emperor's divine will, you shall witness the birth of a new saint." The villagers erupted into a wild frenzy of cheers. Then his voice dropped. He warned that tonight, they would be swallowed by a darkness deeper than anything they had ever known. But that darkness will bring the light. To welcome our miracle, we must first cast the witch into the purifying flames. Everything was ready. Louis signaled Caliban. The prince declared there cannot be two suns in the sky, nor two chosen maidens. Yet the Holy Father had two daughters. He claimed this was a calculated move to sow discord across the entire continent. This is pure evil. In His Majesty's name, justice must be served. Does anyone here actually dare to object? Silence fell. The girls stood trembling by Cardin, heads bowed low. Louis approached, mocking how beautiful the witch looked. He whispered that if she weren't a witch, he would have kept her as a concubine just for that face. Cardin's knuckles turned white. Louis shoved past him, and Caliban followed the prince, ignoring the priest's visible rage. Cardin whispered, "Is there any hope?" Max pulled back his hood, admitting it was nearly impossible to save them here. "Since we are being honest, I have one question," Glazer asked. "What is it, my lord?" Leon whispered that it was possible. The priest looked up in shock just as the girls were locked away together. "Stay calm and stop crying," the sister said. She always knew she had to be the sacrifice for the greater good. "But this isn't fair," the other sobbed. Her sister replied that their very birth was a sin. They must follow the goddess. This is how the prophecy must be fulfilled. There is no turning back now. We have come too far. This will be easier than the bitterness of our lives. You have a choice. Suddenly, Caliban's command roared. "Bind the witch." The girl walked toward the door. She turned one last time, whispering a final, heartbreaking goodbye to her sister. The sister collapsed in tears, begging for forgiveness. She was sorry for the lies. She was actually glad to stay alive. She felt a wave of relief that her sister was dying instead. Suddenly, Max appeared and struck her with a burst of mana. She fell unconscious. Marvis watched, asking if this truly was the best solution they could come up with. He feared it was their only choice. In an instant, the girl was tied to the stake, facing the end. The executioner stepped forward and lit the fuel. Louise commanded everyone to watch closely as the fire took hold. This is the moment a true saint ascends. It is a prince's duty to crush the very voice of doubt. Caliban asked if anyone would dare challenge his greatness. The Empire must learn that only death awaits those who break rules. Dawn broke as the flames reached the girl. She screamed. Max stood by, watching the tragedy unfold before his eyes. Carlane spoke plainly. These methods were shocking, but it seemed like they were backed into a corner with no escape. Richel laughed, saying it wasn't the perfect ending, but far from a failure. The bishop just wanted his daughters to live. As the fire consumed her, Leon spoke. Who could judge the depth of a father's despair in a moment like this? He didn't know the bishop well, but he understood the desire to save them, even at the cost of everything. He was glad to be there until the end. It's a mystery now, but surely the truth will surface one day. It's an inexplicable feeling, a heavy, unexpected burden on the heart. Truly, this is such a miserable affair. The girl looked at Max and recognized those cold eyes. She convinced herself this was justice. This was her punishment. She wasn't pure like her older sister. More than anything in this world, she was absolutely terrified of dying. That was why she hid her true self behind those kind words. Louis signaled to fan the flames even higher. He poured more fuel onto the fire. Mentally, the girl begged her sister to forgive her for being so weak. 2 days earlier, in the bishop's office, he had asked a single question. Your Eminence, who would you spare? Is it a hunger for life, or a soul ready for the ultimate sacrifice? Cardin asks. Looking for the truth, Leanne answers with a look. Yes, he understands, even if words fail to explain it properly. Cardin looks down in silence. He truly believes he has the gift to see right through people. He would forgive his daughter, who finds peace in death. Beside her father, the girl sobs in pure agony. The boys climb into the carriage. But the main character wonders, what was the point of all this? Marvis is confused. Why would a priest fight to save someone who has already chosen to die? The answer is simple. Really, he wanted to teach them the most powerful lesson of all, the true value of life? Exactly. That is the core of everything we are seeing here. Survivors carry the weight of those who are gone. But what if they were given a real choice? Choosing death means understanding its weight. She knows better than anyone what it means to sacrifice for another. Living for yourself teaches nothing. A vassal notes that gratitude is a fickle thing that fades with time. Give kindness for free, and soon it becomes a cycle of endless exploitation and greed. Marbus ends the debate. Walter watches the chaos, wondering who will be left to lead their collective rage. What did these girls do to deserve this? Rachel admits there is nothing left for them to do. The continent is desperate for a miracle maiden. No matter the skill, every sorcerer is trapped under Imperial control. Now, all eyes are on Demot Lishi. No, let us call her the new saint. The girl clings to her dress by the pillar. Carl sighs. His work here is done, the saint power complete. She gasps in shock. Inside the carriage, everyone freezes as the air turns ice cold. The holy power is still divided. Suddenly, the seal on her chest blazes with light. Cardin is stunned. She turns and screams. Father Louis steps forward. So, who is the cheap trickster playing games here? You are correct, Your Eminence. He glares at them, but then Caliban lets out a sudden shout. The witch is dead, but the power is still scattered. He orders the bishop immediate arrest. No mercy. Cardin yells that this is beyond their understanding. This girl is the one chosen by the divine. He never expected such insolence. Cardin only waited this long out of respect for the priest office. And this is how he pays him? By ordering the execution of the Empire's greatest spiritual leader. Who knows? Maybe he hid the real miracle girl just to pull off these pathetic little tricks. In times of total despair, he likely hid her where no one could ever find her. The chaos of a world without a saint was too much. Faith won't save the archbishop now. Caliban draws his blade. Do not blame me, Your Eminence. You brought this disaster upon yourself. Cardin is terrified. He sacrificed his daughter as ordered, but the sacred mark still has not gathered. He pulls his sword, but the girl shields Cardin. Caliban stops in shock. Cardin screams out, "Why would you do this? An unworthy father does not deserve such a sacrifice." But she has an answer. Better to die for a cause than to live without a reason. She searched for purpose, not for gold. She only wanted her sister to live. Fleeing from this existence is just the end of her failure. The main character looks out the window, stunned. He begins to release mana from his body. The innocent should not be punished. This is an adjustment, the girl says. And it applies to you, father. He gasps. What are you talking about? His son had always been the one who wanted them. She points out the truth. They were never daughters to him. Only tools for the church power. He only cared about his own gain. This is the perfect retribution for a man like him. Maybe her death finally has meaning. Cardin screams as his daughter catches her before she falls. Mana wraps around the second sister body. Marbus questions the contractor. Max simply says, "Just listen." Two lost and cursed spirits. Cardin asks what is happening. Mac looks on with a deadly serious gaze. In the name of Marbus, he calls to them. He opens his book, and Cardin is speechless. So this is dark magic. Mana swirls into the air as Leon finally speaks up. They will answer the call of Leon von Marbus to return as the undead. Will he actually revive them? Master, the sister asks, is this actually possible? Leon's response is chilling. If being undead counts as life, then yes, it is their call. Regain a physical form, but lose the warmth of a beating heart forever. He will respect their choice. Dark mana floods their bodies as they stabilize. Then comes the big question. What does he want in exchange for this dark gift? Our main character does not sugarcoat it. He wants their total loyalty. Rude? Maybe. But they appreciate the honesty over fake noble acts. Let us face it, asking for nothing would be way more suspicious. Marbus closes his eyes. Silence means consent. The deal is on. He begins the ritual, reaching into the world of the dead to pull these two lost souls into his eternal service. They recognize him now, the true heir of House Marbus. Eternal loyalty is sworn. Yes, master. They whisper in unison. The eye on the book flashes. The contract is sealed. Leon snaps it shut, genuinely hoping this brings them some peace. He truly hopes that once their service to him is over, they finally find whatever it is they were searching for. Cardin is a broken man, staring at his daughter's lifeless body. Meanwhile, Caliban stops, sensing a sudden, massive shift in the air. That is a heavy magic surge nearby. There is clearly another powerhouse besides Prince Luis. Mesk hops into the carriage. Marvus is fuming. He actually hits him, yelling about taking new subordinates without even checking in first. You are getting a lecture later. Marbus just rubs his head. He technically kept them alive, so where is his reward? Baltor is impressed, calling it a master-level move. Cardin just looks away. Yeah, that is definitely one way to put it. Now, we flash back for a second. Marbus once explained that raising mindless monsters or spirits is a different ballgame. Undead are wild and unpredictable. You cannot just talk to them, you have to mark them. It is much safer that way. Leon asks the real question: how do you make a conscious soul obey you? Marbus smirks. Now that is a great question. You have to convince them. Use their lingering attachments to the world of the living as leverage to make them serve. Convince them to serve? He asks for clarification. Marvus just nods. Yes, that is exactly how it works. Resentment keeps souls anchored here. A necromancer steps in, fixes their problems, and in return, they give him their power. So, it is basically a contract. Leon muses. He gets it now. It is a trade service for help with their final wishes. Exactly. And here is the kicker. The more bitter the soul, the more powerful the servant. Our hero must remember that. Necromancers are not just vultures picking at the dead. Marbus agrees he never saw it as just exploitation anyway. Back to the present. As the Lord of House Marbus, he officially calls upon Alicia and Helen to answer his call. Two streaks of light fly out, but only one girl appears. Marbus is confused. He definitely called for both of them. It is a rare phenomenon. Since they died together, their spirits fused into a single entity during the transition to the afterlife. Carl confirms that is exactly what Lord Marvus was talking about. Ritual leans in, finding the whole fused soul thing fascinating. Waltor notices something off immediately. Her vibe is totally different. Marbus turns to Alicia, asking if she is feeling all right. Which one are you right now? She closes her eyes, explaining that Alicia is in control. Wait, can they just swap? I believe so, Master, she replies calmly. Marbus is impressed. Having two souls in one body is a massive tactical advantage. Alicia looks down, worried she is a disappointment. But then her eyes flash with a different light. Are you joking, sister? She jokes about him forcing them into service, claiming she would rather be a burnt corpse. This must be the soul swap. Looks like Helen was hiding a much wilder side when she was alive. She puts a finger to her lips. Keep quiet, handsome. She is quite the talker, is she not? Marbus cuts to the chase. Enough flirting. What can you ladies actually do? He has no room for dead weight. They get the hint there is plenty of room in his book for useful souls. Helen giggles, teasing him for saying such terrifying things so casually. She is definitely not intimidated by his dark aura. She takes a bow, promising him he will not be disappointed. They are ready to satisfy his every command on the battlefield. To prove her point, she grabs his cape and pulls him inches from her face. Interested in this method? Instead, a little later, Raleigh speaks up. The mission is ready to go. Honestly, nobody expected things to wrap up this way. Cardin tells the Duke the job is done. Now comes the awkward part. Does he still expect to get paid for this? Raleigh just sighs, holding her head in exhaustion. But Ritual is grinning. That was one heck of a performance back there. Turning a man's daughter into an undead right in front of him, that took guts. Helen notices someone watching it is a mage. Ritual agrees, while Marbus notes how much energy she has. Pretty impressive for someone who used to be a saintly maiden. It is definitely different. But hey, he actually prefers this new version of her. Baltor just raises his hands, no judgment. All is well that ends well, right? The girl survived well. Mostly, and Raleigh is satisfied. She crosses her arms and officially marks their mission as a total success. They are officially silver rank adventurers now. As for the reward, she will send the payment directly to the Marbus estate. Lon offers his thanks to the guild leader, Raleigh, but he is already hoping this is not their last job together. Raleigh promises he will be the first to know when work pops up. Carlin agrees she does not make promises lightly, but if there is one thing to worry about, Lord Marbus, it is paying back that loan. Ritual just scoffs in disgust. Talk about shameless hypocrisy. Lady Carline. She actually pulls a revolver and aims it at his head. Marvis looks completely fed up. Enough idle chatter. We need to focus on these two new personalities, the lovely Lady Alicia and the fierce Helen. First, Urshid needs to figure out what powers these new servants actually have. Carlin thinks they should keep stacking up favors. Lady Rally Finalia. Rally accidentally spills her drink all over the table. After a moment, Caliban bows and gives the report. His Eminence refuses to eat or drink. He is drowning in despair, feeling like losing his two daughters is a debt too heavy. Luis fixes his hair and lets out a frustrated sigh, asking a question that sounds pretty heartless to be honest. Why worry about 2 kids when you could have 10 more? Only a weak man lets himself be consumed by despair. Luis turns to face the Emperor. He asks if it even matters how much he has already failed, His Majesty. A chance to change the world, a wonderful maiden wasted. Who knows when another opportunity like this will show up? Caliban speaks. It was your fault, Prince. If you would just give him one more shot, Caliban would dedicate everything to the Empire. Luis frowns, realizing it is finally time for a serious talk. Things are getting way too complicated to ignore now. He understands their mission was crushed by a dark mage of unknown origin. They are not even close to identifying him, right? Caliban looks up with a heavy heart and quietly confirms the truth. He looks absolutely devastated by the failure. Since the spirits of the potential saints vanished without a trace, he suspects someone intervened. But as far as he knows, no mage on the continent can control that kind of power, except for the legendary necromancer who disappeared ages ago, or so he assumes. Luis looks thoughtful. A necromancer? Meanwhile, our main character and his team are back in the forest. Rally demands orders him to explain exactly what kind of powers his new servant is hiding under the surface. To be precise, 2 souls live inside this one body, each with their own power. Rally is skeptical. 2 souls. 1 vessel? Time to prove it. Can she provide a target? Rally asks how tough it needs to be. The answer? Make it strong. With her permission, he wants to show off the older sister's power first. Alicia just bows and says, as you wish. Alicia releases her mana and apologizes for her rudeness. Apparently, her little sister does not really follow the rules of etiquette. Our main character says it is fine. He called her out to show her skills, not to give a lecture on behavior. Alicia smiles, always ready for a fight. Rally waves her hand, and massive monsters start emerging from the very ground. A whole squad of forest trolls. These things regenerate fast. And since Alicia is still learning, Carlin worries this might be tough. But Lord Leon has already proven that he is never reckless. He knows exactly what his team is capable of doing. Walter clenches his fist and cheers for Leon. Crow just watches, noting that their faith in their lord has always been absolute. Marbus just makes a random comment about a fool regretting that he does not have any peanuts for the show. Our main character asks if Alicia can handle these trolls, since they are famously tough. She tells her master not to worry. The trolls lunged forward, and the main character opened his book. A weapon appeared in Alicia's hands, and she smashed the monster. Marbus is stunned. A display of brutal strength like that leaves no doubt about her power, does it? Crow. Even Crow is surprised. A true femme fatale. Someone actually asked to see her crush more skulls with that massive club. Alicia quickly deletes another monster before turning back to the main character. She thinks that should be enough to prove her strength. Now it is time for the sister, Helen. He releases a surge of dark mana, and Helen finally makes her appearance. She teases that she thought he would never ask. Her master loves to show off. Everyone needs to know how diligent she is. She conjures a chain and wraps it right around the monster's neck. Helen laughs. Ugly monsters deserve a beating. Do they not? She slams the beast down and stomps on its head. Helen touches her face and tells the monster to say thank you. It gave its life for her dear lord. Everyone is shocked, and Marvis just shakes his head. She is a total maniac. Finally, the lion sees the crest and realizes they have finally returned to the safety of the Marvis territories. Marbus sums it up perfectly. First mission success. New powerful subordinates in the ranks. The whole trip was a massive win. Our main character just nods his head. He could not agree more. This journey was definitely worth the effort. All right, you and I are starting with Master Marbus, who mentioned he noticed a real improvement in his necromancy skills. Rochelle reaches out, clearly thrilled to finally meet the legendary star of the Hermit School, Lord Marbus, in person. Carlin notes he still owes his organization plenty. Meanwhile, Messi shakes Rachel's hand, asking if their time together is done. Rachel confirms the bad news. The young lord simply cannot afford to be away from school for much longer. Carlin adds that she still has many debtors with blood left to spend. Money does not wait. Marvis chimes in. She is telling the truth. Carlin turns around and speaks one last time before they leave. They are gone, right? He confirms it. Carl says her master's genius was unmatched, but Walter has a talent most could only dream of. It is not just that she has a sharp eye for skill, the head of her organization would be impressed. Rachel just smiles. If she were him, she would pray to never cross paths with that lady ever again. Messi asks why not. Rachel is blunt. She is a monster, and employees usually end up just like their boss. Just know, the leader of the Sleepers has reached a terrifying level of brutality. Yet even he saw Walter's potential. He believed Walter could achieve anything he wanted, as long as he served Lord Lion with absolute loyalty. Walter blushes, thanking Rochelle and Carlin. He admits it is not every day he hears such kind words about himself. Messi calls him his finest subject. He believes Walter's growth will exceed all expectations and wants to help him rise. Rochelle lets out a laugh. Seeing Lord Marbus speak with that kind of confidence is honestly pretty cool. It is time for goodbyes, but not forever. Destiny brought them together. Lon says, let us part with a smile. Carlin breaks the mood, saying it is time to move. As a guild member, she expects his debt paid. Messi looks down, answering carefully. Yes, Lady Carline. Rachel smiles, wondering why the goodbye has to be so tense. Suddenly, Carlin pulls a revolver. She points it, and he screams not to shoot as they finally start leaving. She turns back, admitting she hates empty talk. Next time they meet, he better have the gold to pay up. Now, you and I should watch closely as Lord Marbus nods and watches them disappear into the distance. Then Lien returns to the city. Shocked villagers swarm him, shouting that their lord has returned and hasn't abandoned them. They tell each other to thank him. He is speechless. Why does everyone look like they have seen a ghost? A loud cry rings out. Young Lord Pullen comes charging down the street, weeping with joy and arms wide open. Messi tilts his head in confusion. Suddenly, someone whacks him on the head and screams at him to get down. He spins around in shock. Is that Diana? Baldur asks, terrified. If the Lord is actually okay after that hit. Pullen composes himself. Lion turns around and suggests they take this conversation inside. Marbus agrees it is for the best. After a moment, the truth comes out. This girl is his childhood friend, an heir to the noble Berectia house. Messi adds that she is a powerful spirit mage. She was always ready to jump in and help whenever needed. Crow smirks, calling him a total Casanova. Another beauty in the inner circle? Diana, meanwhile, is just completely lost. She is staring at Lord Marbus. She never imagined seeing Lord Leon, her brother figure, allied with a demon. What is she supposed to think of this unholy alliance? Marbus just shrugs. Think what you want. Long story. Crow says what is done is done. Baldur bows to Lady Diana, admitting he was actually pretty scared of her. It is hard to explain. Diana just sighs, saying she might as well be dead. Why get involved in such trouble? She looks at Leon. Why did he decide to leave the estate without a word and join a guild? His people were in total despair. They honestly believed their lord had abandoned them during their darkest hour. Hard times. Maisie mutters. No excuse. Diana thanks him for at least keeping the property safe while he was gone. Diana blushes, fixing her hair. She could not leave Polonia alone. Besides, she heard he would be taking back power. Leon nods, but he is curious. Is there another reason she came all this way just to see him? Diana looks up surprised, then looks away. She says she came to make sure everything was in its place. Time is running out. Does he even understand what she is implying? Messi asks again to make sure he is right. Diana tells him to get closer, then gives him a tap. That is his punishment for forgetting something so important. He looks up, asking if it is really a big deal. Diana explains, and it finally clicks. The aristocrat meeting. Every noble house is invited to a massive party. You and I realize they must go together as they are engaged. He remembers now. Shortly after, Nox is in bed while the butler mentions the day of the aristocrats is coming. Ugh, what a drag. Why can't my older brother just go instead? He does not get why it is suddenly his turn. The butler explains, 3 noble families of darkness must attend this meeting. Besides, this is the perfect chance to prove the youngest Reinhofer heir is not just some outcast in the eyes of high society. Nick stood up with a heavy sigh. Seriously, what a total pain. As he gets dressed with help from Poland, Diana stands before him. Diana of Baraquia, future Marquis, star of her house, and his fiancé. Lion asks if he is coming. Helen cries out, "Master, how could you possibly do this?" She thought he was the only faithful man in this wicked world. Diana tells her to calm down. Their engagement is just a formality. What respectable noble would ever actually marry a guy like that? She insists she only likes older, wiser men. Our main character nods, wondering how to say it. Marbus asks how she became a contractor. Crow shouts, "What does this mean, butler?" This is also for Master Poland. Wiping away tears, he explains that Lord Lion and Lady Diana have fought like cats and dogs since childhood, bound only by duty. Their legendary houses have boasted generations of deep friendship, forcing them to survive within these, shall we say, tight bonds. Mazia spoke with respect for their very close connection. "My lady, could you please let go of his neck?" Diana glares, calling him naive for thinking he would change as head of the family. She is disappointed to see he is still the same. Leon notes, "You cannot trust someone who just shifts with the wind." Diana laughs, calling him sharp as ever, but suggests he use that tongue to calm his terrified subjects instead. It is true, the apple never falls far from the tree. Suddenly, she stops, turns, and offers Lon an apology. He simply replies that there is absolutely nothing to apologize for. Diana, his father never regretted a thing and never will. Still, it is the Marvis' duty to defend their beliefs, even at the cost of their lives. Diana waves it off, calling him stubborn as usual, but insists he cannot miss the upcoming event. Even if she understands, she cannot stand it. House Marvis defeated Sylvester in the War of the Noble Houses. He has lived up to his title of Duke. It is time to go public and network. Our main character agrees completely. Pullen noticed the scorn from other major houses. Leon simply replies that if it is for the good of his house, so be it. Walter happily exclaims that they will finally receive the recognition his master truly deserves. Crow crosses his arms, thinking it is a wise choice. Ma speaks up, and the decision is made to join the festivities. Later, the aristocrats gather for the reception. Lon takes a seat and sips some wine. A man asks if Sylvester really lost the last battle. Rumors say Count Alan suffered a massive, crushing defeat. The guy asks who they lost to. The man replies, "Believe it or not, they say it was Marbus Revex." True, the Marbus family might be dukes, but they have been struggling lately. Where would they even get the strength to fight? This is absurd. "Come on," the man says. He swears it is the truth. Suddenly, he freezes and points toward the entrance. "Speak of the devil. There is Lord Marbus himself. Go ask him directly." The boy is the spitting image of his father. Leon takes Diana by the hand, noting that it is much louder here than he expected. Still, fancy receptions are not his style. Diana looks down at their joined hands, feeling a bit awkward. She turns and asks if he thinks she actually enjoys this. It is a noble duty to always pretend to be indifferent. M turns and thanks Diana for the reminder. Though she has known Lion since childhood, their last meeting left her embarrassed. His drive to fulfill his duty as head of the family is so strong, he would leap into a lion's mouth for his home. Is he really trying to be that man? Leon asks if the others can handle it. After all, their talent has not fully bloomed yet. Diana smiles and says a 14-year-old should worry about his own talents. M fires back that he has already surpassed her social standing. Diana asks if he is trying to be clever. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the conversation, calling out for young Lord Marbus. Max turns and asks if he wants something. "My dear man," Ribe answers, "it is nothing special." He wonders, was he really the one who defeated Alan? He might have just been a count, but his military power rivaled an entire duchy. Maybe all of this was just one big, exaggerated rumor. Ribe smiles, mentioning he heard strange rumors about his victory in the noble war against Count Alan of Sylvester. "That does not sound weird," Mac asks again. "What is so strange?" Ribe glares, mentally ordering him to just watch. Too much arrogance between them. The lady laughs and apologizes. Honestly, it was hard to even imagine. Rumors say he was supposed to learn strategy from him, but Leon shuts him down. "I killed him," he says. Ruby is completely lost. "What? I killed Alan of Sylvester," Leon repeats. "It was my duty as the Marbus chief. As for strategy, I won't share it here, but if we ever clash, you will see exactly what I have learned." Diana's eyes go wide in shock. Marvis can't believe his ears. This guy is talking like a total madman. Nox watches the drama from the sidelines before finally standing up. Well, now this is some real entertainment. The guests start whispering about all the noise. Is the young Lord Marbus really going to make a fool of himself? They hoped he would show some restraint for his own sake. His family has been mocked enough already. Does it even matter? Our protagonist just wants to leave if there are no more questions for him. Robbie stops him cold. Why so sensitive? If you are just here to mock the Varela family, you will pay. Our hero isn't having it. You were the one mocking the Marbus victory first. He shoots right back. He says it with total gravity. Making a scene like this, it is basically a declaration of war. Diana calls for the knights, trying to de-escalate the tension. She smiles and turns toward Ruby. She reminds him he is just a side branch of the Varela family. He cannot speak for them. He isn't even the heir, yet he is disrespecting a duke. By noble standards, this is a massive insult. Leon is ready for the fallout. Rebela glares, teeth grit. Don't think one win changes anything, she warns. And that warning? It goes for Diana, too. She thought she'd be scared if a real monster said that, but not him. You are being way too provocative. Nox tells him to shut it. Ruby turns around, screaming, "How dare you insult me like that?" Suddenly, he is paralyzed. Pure terror. His hands are shaking. All that bravado? Gone. Just who is this guy? He recognizes that look. Nox leans in. Did you forget who I am? Marbus senses the danger immediately. This man is a beast. Nox grabs him by the throat. Should someone like you really be questioning me? Walter watches the chaos and asks Pullen if Diana can actually handle a guy like that. Pullen says she can, but her voice is shaking. It is her first big banquet. She is clearly not sure. She sighs deeply. I hate to admit it, but your doubts make sense. Our master is way too careless. She is terrified. He will get into a massive scandal before they even realize what is happening. Walter says they just have to believe in him. Pullen agrees. Luckily, Diana is there to manage his temper. He asks what she knows about Diana besides being the fiancée. Where do I even start with her? That engagement? It means nothing. Walter is totally confused. What are you trying to say? Pullen explains, she is more like an older sister. There is a big age gap between them. Honestly, they are just grateful she has looked after their master for all these years with such a kind heart. It is family, not romance. But Pullen mentions one more thing. A latent dragon is coming to this banquet. Rumors say a massive heavy hitter from high society is about to make a big appearance. Walter is shocked. Are we talking about him? Pullen confirms. An insolent noble from the Houses of Darkness. Their lord, Leon, is the youngest son of the legendary House Rhine Harbor, a family that has long since overshadowed the weak Marbus line. His name? It is Nox. Nox steps forward. You better remember my name, unless you want your body broken tonight. Ruby bows his head, begging for forgiveness. I never would have yelled if I knew who you were. He is absolutely terrified now, pleading for mercy for his own stupidity. Nox pours his wine right over the guy's head. You are just a boring aristocrat. Exactly what I thought. What a waste of good wine. Nox laughs as he puts the empty glass on Ruby's head. Leon steps up and asks if they know each other. Nox says the name sounds familiar. Diana introduces him. A young lord from a great house that opposes the nobles of light. He shows total contempt. Is that really all you have to say after I helped you? Nox looks at him. Your name is Leon, right? I think we are going to be very close. Leon smiles. If it helps my family, I would be happy about that. A true leader. Through and through. Now things are getting interesting. You and I know a future meeting is a must, especially since Nox is already famous. She doubted they would see each other much, but warned him to be careful. Mac asked if that was all she knew. Confused, she asked if he had any objections. Marbus spoke up, declaring he was just as sharp and perceptive as ever. Nox resembled him in certain ways. They shared that same unique, terrifying genius. Leon hated that he acted like a common thug. His master agreed it was a waste of such talent. He had never felt dark mana this intense before. He predicted they would become close soon, and he had no doubts. The maid spoke to Nox before apologizing to her master for being insolent. She wondered why he even helped that guy. Nox told her to just watch and see. Curious, she asked exactly what she was supposed to be looking for. He confidently claimed that soon, every soul on the continent would know his name. The maid looked at him in confusion. Nox muttered that no matter what he did, it would be a show. Time to go home. He was exhausted. Diana took Leon by the hand and asked him to follow. It was a formality, but he had to act like her partner. Our hero admitted she was right. But what now? He asked her with a smile. He still remembered the basics of dancing, right? Surely his late father had taught him well. Our lead nodded and took her hand. Together, they began to dance to the music alongside the other banquet guests. Diana looked into his eyes and smiled. thinking he was a natural. There was still a trace of that charming boy. Looking away, she noted he wasn't her type. Marbus called her name, asking what she meant by that. Diana happily told him not to worry. He didn't need to count his steps so intensely, he could just fake the dance. Leon mentioned his late father taught him a noble must always give their absolute best in every single endeavor. Then, our hero pulled the girl closer, firmly placing his hand right on her waist. She shyly thought he was still such a dedicated head of house, wondering if he only pulled her close out of duty. They danced on, locked in a gaze, while the other guests began to whisper. Diana let out a breath and smiled, admitting he was still impressive in every way, even the most unexpected ones. He teased that he wished he could say the same, but she wasn't flexible. Irritated but smiling, she told him to shut up. That was enough for him. But suddenly, a massive explosion shook the room, and people began screaming at the noise outside. Didn't they know a fight at a noble gala would affect them all? Witnesses shouted it was a one-sided beating. Not a fight, but who would dare? Marbus and Diana rushed out, seeing their allies under attack. Walter glared at the attacker, and an angry Diana demanded Ribby explain the reason for such violence. Ribby crossed his arms smugly, claiming she had arrived just in time. He said he wouldn't repeat himself. So, what happened? He asked with a mocking smile. Wasn't his voice a bit too bold for someone without a patron? Marbus thought this idiot actually believed he was a lion. Since the white snow wolf left the stage, you and I are seeing these aristocrats go absolutely insane over nothing. Leon sat beside Poulin and demanded that Ray-Bay explain exactly what his subordinate did wrong. Walter was paralyzed with fear. Just moments before, Reeb's servant had asked if his master was all right. But Reeb simply screamed at him to shut up. Useless, insignificant clowns. He knew this was going to end badly. Walter asked Poulin if these noble gatherings were just a chance for the younger generation to socialize and build connections. Poulin smiled and agreed. These events were vital for the Marbus family right now, since their reputation had taken a hit. Just another reason to be grateful to Lady Diana. It was kind of her to accompany the knights to this reception. She noted with a smile how much they valued each other. Happily, she added they had been friends since childhood. Rebale approached them rudely, demanding to know if they were also part of the pathetic scum known as the Marbus family. They weren't. Poulin nervously wondered if this was the young heir of the Varela family. What did he want from them? He responded politely, but couldn't ignore the offensive tone. Why was he trying to start such an obvious conflict here? He just laughed, asking what provocation he meant. Those were awfully bold words coming from a lowly butler. Rebay called his assistant and ordered him to finish them off. Coleman, the assistant, worriedly noted they were near Duke land. He didn't want to disobey, yet it defied all common sense. Rebay claimed fallen nobles deserved only contempt. He had to stop doubting and act. Grabbing his sword, he warned that disobedience meant death. If he really called himself a knight, he should have drawn his sword. Poulin warned him not to fall for such a blatant provocation. They could not afford another clash just yet, and they definitely did not want to pile more stress onto their master's shoulders. Walter tried to walk away, but his ally was struck down. In a desperate panic, he screamed out his name. Walter was seeing red, but Poulin tried to calm him down. Was their master really someone they needed to doubt? Coleman crushed the butler's head under his boot, and Walter shoved it off. Drawing his blade, he roared for them to stop. He only wanted to protect him. After all, he loved him as much as his young master. Rebay just smirked, finding the whole display charming. They would both regret their loyalty. The battle erupted as they began trading savage blows and parrying lethal strikes. After being knocked back, Walter braced for impact. Diana stepped in, demanding to know what caused this entire scandal. The banquet guests started whispering. Was that Varela family trash causing more trouble again? This was pure entertainment for them. They wanted to see if the Marbus family's victory over Sylvester was just pure luck. A noble lady wondered out loud where a kid like that got his strength. Everyone else seemed to agree with her. They were all hoping the Dark families would just wipe each other out. Finally, Rebay challenged Leon to a duel. The guests would love it. Our protagonist agreed it was a fantastic idea. He accepted the challenge. Diana shouted his name in shock. He unleashed his skills as the enemy sent minions to swarm him. Coleman moved in, and the master of ceremonies mocked Walter, saying he expected much more from him. Walter bowed his head, apologizing for failing his master. Leon looked at him and said he was wrong. This was different. Right as the opponent lunged, the protagonist released his power, landing a devastating critical hit. Everyone stared in awe. The main character coldly stated he hoped that for Poland's sake, He would fight with everything he had. He was about to declare a core principle of the Marbus family. Suddenly, Undead rose, leaving Pullen completely baffled. Our main character made it clear they eliminate anyone necessary, without hesitation. This was about their family's prosperity and the safety of the people they loved, no matter who stood in their way. Even if it meant danger, they had to uphold this principle. Before this manor battle, Rebbe was on his knees in humiliation. Someone approached, and he snapped, asking if they came to mock him. Terrified, Rebbe realized it was the prince. He begged for forgiveness, terrified of his own previous rudeness. He never imagined the crown prince would actually come to him. Luis smiled, called him by name, and told him to forget the formalities. Rebbe was honored that the prince remembered a humble servant. They agreed to carry on without any strict rules. Rebbe understood. Luis admitted he had been watching the scene unfold and found the whole thing quite entertaining. He asked if the prince meant the feud between the Marbus and Rainhair lords. The answer was yes. He could not resist his curiosity. He had to know, why did two lords of the darkness suddenly team up against him? It was hard to believe they had ever been on such friendly terms until now. Plus, he heard the strange news of the Marbus victory in the Noble War. Rebbe agreed it was highly suspicious. Luis gave a wicked grin, placing a hand on his shoulder. With a little help, they could uncover the truth. Rebbe thought that since Reinber left, the Marbus lord was nothing more than a predator with sharp fangs. With the prince's backing, he could win easily. He could not afford to let this golden opportunity slip away. With a smirk, he promised to follow every command. But in that moment, Rebbe realized he had made a massive mistake. Trapped by the undead, he screamed that it was a crime for a noble to ignore him like this. Was it right for someone of his rank to get involved in a simple servant's quarrel? Leon asked. To others, they were just common servants. But where they saw nobodies, Leon saw only his loyal followers. Rebbe gritted his teeth and demanded to know why he would do so much for them. The main character repeated his warning: they kill without hesitation when necessary, and there will be no exceptions. Then, he ordered Walter to get Pullen to a doctor immediately. Diana called out to him, saying she was on his side. But he absolutely had to stop now. A man from a side branch of a noble house was not a real threat to the Marbus family. This was too sensitive to become public knowledge. It was smarter to retreat. Leon stayed silent as Rebbe grabbed Diana. Rebbe smirked, calling it a basic tactic. He asked Leon what he would do now. Would he back down, or would he keep up this little act? Pointing at Diana, Rebbe asked if he really wanted his toy damaged. All right, you and I are back with our hero who thought Lady Diana was the toy here. 18 words. Marbus just face-pawed in disbelief. Rebbe knew the contractor was hopeless, but he would never let this girl get hurt. 20 words. How about we just wipe out these undead and leave without a messy fight? 14 words. The nobles were already watching with pure disgust. But if they did not understand, he would gladly repeat it. 19 words. He did not just mess with his men, he dared to threaten Lady Diana. His magic flared, promising a world of pain. 21 words. Ruby felt it first. A chilling, ominous energy suddenly filled the room. 12 words. Leon snapped, asking if he was insulting Diana's honor on purpose. Marbus told him to hurry up. Silence is a confession. 21 words. Every word he spoke felt like a lesson in wisdom. Then, he roared using his powers. 16 words. Death was the only fair price left to pay. Rebbe screamed that the girl would die too. 17 words. Right then, Diana landed a lethal blow on her captors. Our hero moved instantly, shielding her with his power. 19 words. His undead army tore through the rest. Leon stared at his fallen men, in total horror and despair. 18 words. Diana was stunned. She had heard rumors about Leon's growing strength, but seeing this level of power was another story. 20 words. Marvis leaned in, telling Lady Diana she clearly holds a very special place in the contractor's heart. 17 words. Diana was confused. This side of him was new. She had never seen this much raw emotion on his face. 19 words. Ruby shrieked in terror, begging for mercy. But our protagonist delivered the final, decisive strike. 16 words. The aristocrats could not believe it. Murder at a ceremonial gathering? Then, Lion unleashed his dark necromancy. 17 words. His magic felt raw and unpolished, but it was undeniably terrifying to behold. 13 words. In high society, the Marbus name meant two things: a terrifying force that made nobles tremble, or an outcast waiting to fall. 22 words. Suddenly, Luis started clapping. A beautiful sight, he called it. Our hero wondered if the prince was actually being serious. 20 words. For many, the prince's tastes were quite peculiar. Diana called his name nervously, but he just laughed it off. 18 words. He was just inspired to see the lost art of necromancy finally returning to Arkham. 15 words. It had been dead for centuries under his useless predecessors. How did he master what everyone else failed? 18 words. Our main character had heard the genius labels before, but he did not see himself that way. 17 words. Louise called him a once-in-a-century prodigy. Leon just shrugged it off. It was not for him to judge his own talent. 21 words. He knew his strength was the only reason he could stand tall as the Marbus patriarch. Now, everything finally made sense. 21 words. He just hoped this insane talent would not eventually become a threat to the Imperial line. 16 words. Our hero smiled back. The feeling is mutual as long as nobody threatens the Marbus family. Marbus was proud of that answer. 21 words. Other noble houses would be coming for them soon with their claims. 12 words. But the power he had shown would keep them quiet for now. Time to dig in and strengthen their position. 20 words. Now, pay attention, because the prince is clearly planning something dark. That demonic aura was impossible to miss. 18 words. Mez felt that ominous vibe too. It looked like a literal demon was pulling the strings here. 17 words. Back in his room, Leon relaxed. The Varela family did not push back, and they made it home in one piece. 21 words. Marva's suspected Prince Louis had cleaned up the mess himself. The guy is definitely up to something. 17 words. Things are getting complicated. And first on the list, they seriously need to fix the family treasury. 17 words. Between the massive debt and mansion repairs, it was time for Diana's advice. They needed a top-tier treasurer. 18 words. He remembered Diana's warning. The more he tried to fix the money issues alone, the deeper the debt got. 19 words. He did not want to leave behind a mountain of debt. Crow suddenly had a wild idea. 17 words. Just become a necromancy archmage. That way, death cannot stop you from managing the books forever. 16 words. Marvis hated that idea. He was not going to let his contractors spend eternity hiding from debt collectors. 18 words. Helen asked if they could even afford one. A good manager wants a massive salary anywhere on the continent. 19 words. You have to spend money to make money. Marvis told them to stay focused on the immediate problems. 18 words. Sometimes you have to sacrifice to win later. Our protagonist could not agree more. 14 words. They would find a perfect manager for the Marbus clan. It was time to put out an announcement. 17 words. Marbus was confused, but our hero did not care about the gap between nobles and commoners. 16 words. If someone has the skills, he will hire them. Trust me, the plan is finally in motion. 16 words. Leon claimed he would be happy with a simple, humble worker, but Marbus, he just called him a total cheapskate. Crow exploded. He could not believe the pure insolence coming from that furry little creature. How dare you mock a lord, saving every penny for his clan? Wait, does he not spend a fortune on nuts? Seriously? This is your reward for the last trip. No arguments. It is not up for debate. Our main character called out to Ken, who wondered what was up. He ordered them to convene the Marbus clan council. Back at the palace, Louis watched with a grin. This guy was definitely starting to get very interesting. He could feel the energy radiating as his mark appeared. They had way more in common than he first thought. Later, on the streets, people gathered around a new notice. The Marbus family is hiring a treasurer. Show some respect. Maybe the new lord actually had a plan. The ad said he would hire anyone, regardless of their background or origin. But he knew the truth most could not read. They were not about to let just anyone manage the estate. Siren watched them, her fist clenched tight. Later, back home, Marbus pointed out they desperately needed a treasurer. However, the salary was pathetic. Only one single gold piece. Poulin broke the news to Mr. Marbus. Under strict Imperial rules, they could not ask for rewards, despite winning that battle. Even though Lord Leon made good money, most of it was going straight toward paying off the estate massive debts. They only had 100 gold pieces left for everything. At this rate, they would not even survive the month. Crow panicked. Why is this happening? It is just one crisis after another. And the nut situation? Lord Leon still owed them. But Walter noted that plenty of people would still apply for the job. They should at least evaluate the candidates first. Marbus had to agree with Walter on that one. If they kept arguing, they would never decide anything. Poulin adjusted his clothes, while Marbus took a long, deep breath. Leon decided it was time to find the candidates. Soon, a massive crowd gathered, waiting for the interviews to begin. Out of nowhere, a man shoved a girl aside. Siren demanded to know who he was. but he just smirked. She could not believe her rivals were this pathetic. It was Alcar de Nagishi, a son from her own tiny province. He was a stalker. Siren knew he would follow her anywhere she went. She asked why he even cared. Alcar claimed he did, putting a heavy hand on her shoulder and calling her name. What kind of man would ever let his own fiancée wander off this far alone? She silently pushed his hand away, making Alcar fly into a rage. He told her to stop being stubborn about her origin. Siren snapped back. His background was not any better than hers. Did he really think his status gave him the right to everything? Alcar said yes. A commoner was just property. He asked if she would dare try that again. Siren declared she would surpass him one day. Is being a commoner really such a problem? Does that make her low class? Who gets to decide her fate? Alcar mocked her, asking if she really thought she would be useful to nobles. She said, as long as life improved, fine. Anything was better than marrying a jerk like him. He lost it, raising his arm while calling her absolute trash. Right then, our main character appeared, using his powers to shut him down. Alcar was stunned. What was going on? Our hero asked if there was a problem with his judgment. He hated disorder. They had better remember that. He took his seat at the front, introducing himself as the true leader of the Marbus family. He suggested starting the test for the next administrator immediately. Leon caught Siren's eye, and she gave a small smile. Marbus noticed the look. Finally, at least one candidate seemed worthy. Maybe this would not be a total waste of time. Thanks to his deal with the demon, Leon had gained a terrifying new skill, a gaze that could pierce the soul. This was a classic trait of demons. They know exactly what their victims want, seducing them with sweet promises while exploiting inner doubts. Once you break, there is no escape. The demon Marbus found his next target, a young woman. She had an iron will, stronger than anyone else. Our hero announced that the exam for the new administrator was officially beginning. Then, the main character laid out the first task. They had to fully understand the scale of their situation. The map showed the entire Marbus territory and all of their surrounding neighboring lands. He figured everyone was already well aware of the family's massive financial struggles. Still, thanks to their ties with other noble houses, they were confident they could survive this crisis by selling off special resources and goods. Our main character summons a literal hourglass with his powers, giving everyone just 10 minutes to come up with a real solution. Siren stares at the map and starts making her own marks. She knows she has to be the one to find the answer. The Marbus family territory was stuck way down on the southern border of the entire continent. They had zero trade potential and barely any natural resources except for one old mine they couldn't even afford to develop. Pretty questionable, right? Siren whispers about the labor shortage. I mean, looking at this place, how are you supposed to attract young people to the middle of nowhere? Hiring knights or mages was totally off the table with no gold. The Marbus family was truly backed into a corner here. He sneers at her, saying she will soon realize a commoner has no place among the high-ranking noble families. Siren ignores the hate and goes back to the map. Everyone is calling her a fool, but she is locked in. 10 minutes are up. Leon tells them that if they give up now, they can leave with their pride intact. But if anyone had a proposal worth hearing, he asked them to step onto the podium right now. One man finally stands up, ready to gamble everything on his own idea. He drops to one knee, showing total respect to the leaders. He spreads out the map, calling the Marbus estate an impenetrable fortress. But being a fortress usually means you are isolated from the world. Production was a nightmare. But then he remembers the mountain mine. It was sitting there, barely even touched. How could they pass this up? Imagine the rubies and sapphires that high society would absolutely kill for. But our protagonist shuts him down with one question. Where exactly is the money for this massive project coming from? The candidate admits he does not know the family budget, but he was hoping there was enough in the vault for the digging. Or, they could just borrow the gold from the capital or a trade guild. Then the main character hits him with the, "What if you cannot get a loan?" The guy just bows, admitting he failed. The master of ceremonies moves things along, calling the next candidate to the stage. This is it. Siren steps up while everyone else whispers about her being a nobody. She knows she has to take this chance. Now,